In the summer of 1864, a beautiful 19-year-old woman, Fanny Kelly, was captured by Indians while traveling on the frontier for land in Idaho. Her wagon train was ambushed by the Lakota. The men were massacred. The women and children were taken. For the next 6 months, Fanny lived with them amid a hostile wilderness and constant threat of death. Her courage and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds would lead her to pen one of the most vivid and gripping accounts of frontier survival ever written. This is her story of what it was like to be kidnapped by the Lakota. Before we get into it, if these videos help you sleep, just tap like. I'm curious where you all are. Drop your city in the comments if you want. Someone in Berlin's winding down while I'm still up in the States recording this. Wild. Alright, let's head back to 1864 on the American frontier. Trust me, it's going to be quite a ride. But first, get comfortable. Seriously, adjust those pillows. Pull up that blanket, because where we're going, you're going to want to be cozy. You jolt awake to the sound of hoofbeats, dozens, maybe hundreds of horses approaching in the distance. The canvas of your covered wagon is tinged with early morning light. For a moment, you're disoriented. Where are you again? Oh right, somewhere in the Dakota Territory. Your wagon has been moving for weeks now, the wooden planks beneath your thin bedroll leaving imprints on your back each morning. Your husband, Josiah, is already up, his voice urgent outside. Fanny, get Mary ready, quickly. Mary, your 7-year-old adopted daughter, your niece actually, your sister's child who you took in when both her parents died. You reach for her small form, still wrapped in blankets beside you. Unlike your comfortable bed right now, surrounded by safety and modern conveniences, you've been sleeping fully clothed for weeks. You never know when you might need to move fast out here. And this morning, apparently, is one of those times. In May of 1864, when your journey began, you were full of hope despite the warnings. You were only 19, recently married to Josiah Kelly. He was 15 years older, a former Union soldier and farmer whose health had been worn down by war and hard labor. Idaho promised a fresh start, better climate, fertile land, new opportunities. Your wagon train was small, just a handful of families including the Larimores with their 8-year-old son, a minister, and 2 black servants who worked for your family, Frank and Andy. It's probably nothing, you tell Mary as you help her dress quickly, just a precaution. But Mary's eyes are wide with fear. She's seen Indians at trading posts before and always felt uneasy around them despite everyone's reassurances. Kids in 1864 grew up hearing stories about savages and painted warriors who attacked innocent travelers. "Are the Indians coming for us?" she whispers. "No, sweetheart, we have agreements with them. They'll let us pass through." The words sound hollow even to your ears. You peek through the wagon canvas. The morning light spills across the vast plains of the Black Hills, painting the landscape in warm orange hues. It would be beautiful if not for what you see on the horizon, and holy shit, there are a lot of them. Wait, let me paint this picture clearly. Imagine looking up and seeing hundreds of mounted warriors on horseback silhouetted against the morning sky. They're not moving yet, just watching from atop a bluff. You count roughly 200 warriors, their bodies adorned with paint, feathers, and weapons. Your stomach drops. This isn't a trading party or a small band. This is a war party. Josiah, you call out, your voice trembling despite your attempts to stay calm. Josiah, there are so many of them. Last night, your small wagon train had crossed Little Box Elder Creek. The evening had been peaceful, singing together under the stars, dreaming about your new life in Idaho. Ho for Idaho was the refrain, full of optimism and promise. That optimism is gone now, replaced by cold fear. "Get back in the wagon with Mary," Josiah orders, his military experience taking over. "Everyone circle the wagons now." The handful of men in your party scramble to arrange the wagons in a defensive ring, the standard pioneer response to threat. It's pathetic, really. A few wooden wagons against 200 mounted warriors. But what choice do you have? Mary is trembling in your arms, her fair hair catching the morning light. She buries her face against your shoulder as the sounds begin. War whoops and gunshots fired into the air. The warriors are descending the bluff now, moving towards your pathetic little circle. Promise we'll be okay, Mary whispers. You stroke her hair but can't bring yourself to make promises you might not keep. The Lakota halt a safe distance from your wagons. They don't attack immediately, which is confusing. Is this some kind of game? Your husband is conferring with the other men, deciding what to do. Josiah, you call out when he passes near your wagon. Don't shoot first. Please. If you fire one shot, they'll massacre all of us. Your husband's jaw tightens. He hates feeling helpless, but knows you're right. With those overwhelming numbers, your lives are completely at the mercy of the Lakota. After several tense minutes, the war cries and gunfire cease. An eerie silence settles over the prairie. Then a single warrior approaches your wagon circle. Josiah steps forward to meet him. Even from here, you can see this is an older man, a chief, judging by his bearing and the respect shown by the others. Ottawa, you hear him introduce himself. He's speaking broken English, beating his chest and pointing to his warriors. Good Indian me. The chief explains they weren't planning to encounter settlers. They were simply hunting for buffalo and deer. You feel a momentary flood of relief as Josiah and Ottawa shake hands. But then something changes. The rest of the warriors suddenly push forward, flooding into your wagon circle. They're smiling, nodding, extending hands for shakes, but there's something predatory in their movements. They're scanning everything, taking inventory. Mary looks up at you with the same expression she had at those trading posts, like she knew something the adults didn't, like she could see through the pretense. Trading, Chief Ottawa insists. We trade. Josiah, desperate to keep peace, agrees, but it quickly becomes apparent this isn't trading, it's taking. The warriors are becoming more brazen by the minute, seizing whatever catches their eye. You're thinking, why aren't we moving? Why are we just sitting here letting this happen? But Josiah's strategy becomes clear. He's stalling. The Oregon Trail is well traveled. If another wagon train or military patrol comes along, the Lakota might withdraw. It's a desperate plan, but it's something. I don't like this, Mary whispers. Their smiles aren't real. Smart kid, because when one warrior reaches for Josiah's gun, the facade cracks. Your husband pulls back, finally showing resistance. No, he says firmly, hand on his weapon. The tension spikes immediately. This is it. The moment everything explodes. But then Ottawa intervenes, telling his warriors the trading is done. He instructs your party to continue down the trail. The relief is palpable as you organize to move out. But here's the thing. The Lakota follow closely behind and alongside your wagons. This isn't over. Why are they still following us? You ask Josiah when he checks on you and Mary. I don't know, he admits, but keep Mary close. An hour later, your wagon train approaches a narrow valley surrounded by rocks. Josiah, whose military experience has kept him alert to tactical disadvantages, stops the procession. We're not going in there, he tells Ottawa firmly when the chief asks why you've stopped. Even with your limited experience, you can see why. The valley is a perfect location for an ambush, high ground on all sides, limited escape routes. Josiah is refusing to lead your party into such an obvious trap. The tension builds again until Ottawa makes another suggestion, sharing a meal before parting ways. You think, is this really happening? We're going to have a picnic with the people who might be planning to kill us? But again, what choice do you have? Your party begins preparing provisions, desperate to maintain peace. In the hurry and confusion, people scatter to collect firewood, gather supplies, prepare food. Josiah and Andy head into the nearby forest for wood. You stay with Mary, keeping her close as you help with meal preparations. You don't realize until the crack of a gunshot splits the air. One of your fellow travelers jerks backward, dead before he hits the ground. Chaos erupts. War cries, arrows flying, bullets. Frank, one of your black servants, rushes toward you but collapses at your feet, his body pierced by several arrows. The Lakota have finally shown their true intentions. You clutch Mary to your chest, pressing her face against you to shield her from the horror unfolding around you. Gunpowder smoke fills the air as screams and war whoops create a terrifying cacophony. In the trees, Josiah and Andy hear the commotion and run toward the wagons. But when they see the smoke and chaos, the overwhelming number of warriors, they make a devastating calculation. They can't save you. Attempting to would only mean their certain death. Your husband disappears back into the forest. You don't see him go. You're too focused on keeping Mary safe, standing perfectly still, hoping that if you don't appear threatening, the warriors might spare you. The Lakota, having quickly eliminated any resistance, turn their attention to looting the wagons. Their tomahawks, some still dripping with blood, smash open trunks and chests containing family heirlooms. They empty bags of flour into the dirt just to take the bags. Everything of value is being taken or destroyed. The scene is so surreal, it's almost like you're watching it happen to someone else. But Mary's trembling body against yours keeps you anchored in the horrifying reality. When you notice warriors looking your way, you make a desperate decision. You rush to Chief Ottawa, Mary still in your arms. Please, you beg, spare us. We mean no harm. Ottawa seems indifferent. He tells you to be quiet and rests his hand on his revolver to emphasize the point. As you back away, you frantically scan the trees for any sign of Josiah, but he's nowhere to be seen. The Lakota bring Sarah Larimore and her young son to where you're standing. Her husband apparently fled at the start of the attack. Sarah is distraught, crying hysterically as she watches the warriors ransack her family's wagon. Her wailing increases when she sees one warrior examining her wedding dress. Ottawa, irritated by the noise, approaches Sarah with a knife drawn and points the blade directly at her. The message is clear: be quiet or die. Sarah's screams instantly cease. You take this moment to approach Ottawa again, pleading for protection. He hesitates, then does something unexpected. He places a wreath of feathers on your head. You don't understand the significance at the time, but will later learn this is a token of his protection. As the raid concludes, you find yourself, Mary, Sarah, and her son the only survivors, or at least the only ones remaining. The men have either been killed or have fled. Your wagons and valuables are either taken or destroyed. The warriors force you onto horses, you and Mary on one, Sarah and her son on another. As prisoners of the Lakota, you begin moving north, away from the Oregon Trail and deeper into their territory. Unlike Sarah, who lost everything in the raid, you've managed to keep some possessions. Your shoes, some clothes, and over $100 in paper money tucked into your pockets. You also have a couple of books and letters. Most importantly, you have Mary, and you still have hope that Josiah will follow and somehow rescue you. As the Lakota war party travels north, you discreetly tear pages from your books, dropping them behind you like breadcrumbs, hoping Josiah or other rescuers might follow the trail. The warriors don't stop to celebrate their successful raid. They continue moving through the night, a common practice to put distance between themselves and potential pursuers. A well-executed raid hits hard and fast, then disappears. Night falls, bringing cooling temperatures after the hot day. Stars glitter overhead and dark forest surrounds you. But there's no peace in this beautiful night scene. The warriors chant war songs as they push forward across creeks and dangerous gorges. Although the Indians ride near you in the darkness, you realize they might not notice if a small child slipped away. A desperate plan forms in your mind. You whisper to Mary, "We are only a few miles from our camp. I have dropped letters on the way. These papers will guide you back again." Drop gently down and lie on the ground for a little while to avoid being seen, then retrace your steps. "If I can, I will follow you." Mary's face shows fear and reluctance to leave you. You brush your hands through her fair hair, your trembling lips mouthing a silent prayer. When the Lakota riders drift slightly ahead, you lower your 7-year-old adopted daughter to the ground. She quickly disappears into the brush. The warriors don't seem to notice her absence, and you continue moving with the war party. Your heart is torn, devastated to be separated from Mary, but relieved she might escape this nightmare. Over the next hour, you search desperately for your own chance to escape. You feel that the further you travel, the less chance there is of rescue. In the darkness, you make a clumsy attempt to dismount. The Lakota aren't fooled. They're immediately upon you, and then they realize Mary is gone too. They beat you, demanding to know where the child went. You lie, explaining that Mary had fallen asleep and slipped from the horse and that you were only trying to find her. They clearly don't believe you. The beatings continue as they warn that any further escape attempts will be met with harsher punishment. They tell you they'll search for Mary in the morning, but for now, the journey continues. After several more hours of travel, the war party finally stops to camp for the night, far enough away that they feel safe from pursuers. All night long you remain under close guard, warriors with tomahawks watching your every move. Morning comes, and as promised, some warriors are sent to search for Mary. You never learn if they found her. You pray constantly that she made it back to the trail, found help, and is safe. You're reunited with Sarah Larimore and her son as the journey continues, now on foot. Chief Ottawa approaches and singles you out, instructing you to carry his belongings, a bow, gun, and a 3-foot stick that you can't identify. The items are heavy, but you dare not refuse. As you travel, your mind keeps drifting to Mary. Every sound in the forest makes you think you hear her calling. The constant thought of your daughter distracts you, and you accidentally drop Ottawa's stick. It breaks in two. You quickly glance around, but none of the Lakota seem to have noticed. Rather than stop and explain, you kick the pieces off the side of the trail and continue walking, hoping no one will realize what happened. That day, the party halts in a valley near Deer Creek Station in Wyoming. The warriors use heavy straps to tie you down for the night. When they aren't looking, you struggle against the bindings, desperate to escape. Sarah begs you not to leave her alone if you manage to get free, but you can't promise that. Your only thought is finding Mary and getting back to Josiah. Exhausted from the ordeal, you finally fall asleep. When you wake in the morning, Sarah and her son are gone. Somehow, during the night, one of the Indians helped them escape but left you tied down. You're now completely alone among your captors, heading deeper into unknown territory with no allies, no familiar faces, and no idea what awaits you. You wonder if you'll ever see your family again, if you'll ever sleep in a real bed, eat a proper meal, or feel safe. Out here, with these warriors who've already shown their capacity for violence, your survival seems increasingly unlikely, but something keeps you going. Some stubborn part of you refuses to give up hope. Little do you know, this is just the beginning of your 6-month ordeal among the Lakota, an experience that will test every limit of your endurance, courage, and will to survive. Your feet are bleeding, that's a new development. After days of forced marching, the soft skin of your settler's feet wasn't ready for this terrain. Sharp rocks, prickly underbrush, and now scorching sand. Each step sends fresh jolts of pain up your legs as you trudge forward, still carrying Chief Ottawa's belongings, like some kind of pack mule. The Lakota warriors move with practiced ease across this harsh landscape, born to this life, raised in this wilderness. You're not, and your body reminds you with every step. You've lost track of how long you've been walking. Time blurs when you're pushed to your physical limits. All you know is you're moving further from everything familiar, deeper into territory controlled by people who've already shown they can kill without hesitation. "Water!" you croak, your voice barely audible. Your lips are cracked. Your tongue feels swollen. The warriors look at you, then at each other, but no one stops. The Lakota war party has been travelling relentlessly since leaving the site of the wagon train attack. Their pace is brutal, designed to put distance between themselves and any potential pursuers. But unlike them, you weren't raised to travel like this. You weren't prepared for days without proper water or rest. Finally, they pause. You collapse to your knees, watching through half-lidded eyes as warriors dig into a creek bed searching for water. When little is found, they drink what's available. None is offered to you. Christ, you mutter under your breath. Just one sip. One of the younger warriors glances your way but turns his head. You're not a priority. You're cargo. Property. You force yourself up and keep moving because what other choice do you have? Die here in the dirt? As brutal as captivity is, some stubborn part of you refuses to give up. Night falls after what feels like endless walking. Your legs are trembling from exhaustion, but something different is happening in the camp tonight. The Lakota make a big fire, larger than previous nights, and begin to dance around it. The rhythmic stomping, the chanting, it's unlike the other evenings. This feels ceremonial, important, and somehow that makes it more terrifying. Ottawa stands near the fire, his face transformed by the dancing shadows. He watches you with an intensity that makes your skin crawl. Then suddenly he stops the dancing, turns to you and yells, "Choa Chapa!" Everyone stares at you. You have no idea what he means. "Choa Chapa," he repeats, more aggressively this time. His hand moves to his weapon. You stand frozen, desperately trying to understand what he wants. A young Lakota boy named Wheel approaches, making a puffing motion with his lips. Realization dawns on you with horrible clarity. The pipe. Ottawa wants his pipe. Your mind races back to the 3-foot stick you'd been carrying. The one you dropped and broke days ago, the one you kicked off the trail rather than admit you'd broken it. That wasn't just any stick. It was Ottawa's ceremonial pipe. Oh God. Ottawa's face contorts with rage as he realizes you've lost his sacred pipe. To him, this isn't just carelessness, it's sacrilege. He declares that you must die for this sin. He's saying they're going to kill you. A warrior who knows some English mutters, "Tie you to horse, use for target practice." Your knees go weak as warriors bring forward a horse. Others notch arrows in their bows. They place firebrands in hot coals to make the horse run wild while you're tied to it. You realize with horror, one Indian is sent to retrieve a particularly fast mount. This is actually happening. You drop to your knees, frantically praying, thinking of Mary and Josiah. Ottawa approaches with rope in hand. You've got seconds to live. Your hands frantically search for something, anything to make up for what you've done. Your small books are useless, maybe your shoes, but then you remember the money, the $120 in paper bills you've kept hidden in your pockets since the raid. In a frenzy, you pull out the banknotes and basically throw them at Ottawa and the nearby warriors. You fan out the bills, passing them around, insisting on their high value. Money, good money, you cry, pressing the paper into their hands. Very valuable many horses. The warriors examine the green paper with curious eyes. They've seen American money before. They know it has power among white settlers. Ottawa turns a bill over in his hand, studying the elaborate printing. Something changes in his expression. Whether impressed by the money itself or amused by your frantic pleading, you can't tell. But he barks an order and the warriors lower their weapons. You actually faint from relief. When you wake, you're still guarded, but the horse, ropes and target practice preparations are gone. You've bought another day of life with $120, every cent you had. The journey continues for days, each one blending into the next. You're a walking ghost now. Barely eating, sleeping only when you collapse from exhaustion, speaking to no one. But you're alive. And as long as you're alive, there's hope. When the party nears the Powder River, something unexpected happens. Ottawa's brother-in-law notices your deteriorating condition and takes pity on you. He gives you fresh stockings for your bleeding feet. This simple act of kindness, the first you've experienced since your capture, is received as an insult by Ottawa. A heated argument erupts between the warriors. Ottawa, enraged that someone would show kindness to his prisoner without permission, actually fires a shot at his brother-in-law's horse. Unable to retaliate against the chief directly, Ottawa's brother-in-law turns his anger toward you instead. He draws his bow and aims it at your chest. No, 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 you whisper, frozen in place. Just as he's about to release the arrow, a young, strong warrior appears from nowhere. He grabs the bow before it can be fired and tosses it to the ground. The tension is electric as the two men face off. This newcomer, you'll later learn his name is Jumping Bear, also translated as Charging Bear, diffuses the situation with calm words. He's not from Ottawa's band. He's a Blackfoot, another band of the Lakota. Something about him is different from the others. From that moment on, Jumping Bear becomes your unlikely protector. He even rides beside you, which is unusual since male warriors rarely ride with female captives. His kind treatment stands in stark contrast to the others, and it soon becomes obvious to everyone that he's developed a romantic interest in you. After 2 weeks of travel, you finally approach the Lakota village, but there's a strange ritual first. The war party stops out of sight to prepare for their arrival. What are they doing? You ask Jumping Bear, who knows some English. Making beautiful, he says, gesturing to the warriors adorning themselves and their horses with paint and decorations. Show victory. You watch in disbelief as the warriors put on clothes taken from your wagon train. One warrior wears a gentleman's hat and a pair of your silk gloves, with a breechclout his only other garment. The absurd contrast would be comical in any other circumstance. They like to show what they take, Jumping Bear explains. Show they are strong. The war party, now properly decorated for their triumphant return, moves toward the village. As you crest a hill, your heart sinks at what you see. The village is massive, stretching for miles across the plain. Hundreds of teepees stand in clusters with smoke rising from cooking fires. So many, you whisper. Many more than white soldiers, Jumping Bear says matter-of-factly. This just one village. The procession enters the village to much fanfare. People dance and scream as you pass. Children run alongside the horses, pointing at you with curiosity. It's a victory parade, and you're the prize. When you reach Ottawa's lodge, his wives wait outside to receive him. 6 women stand in a line, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile as they eye you. Here, to your dismay, you're separated from Jumping Bear, the one person who's shown you any kindness. You're alone again as the war party disperses and Ottawa leads you toward his wives. You had hoped the women might be more sympathetic to your plight, perhaps even help you escape. Those hopes are immediately crushed. They meet you, petite, white, and obviously terrified, with suspicious looks and crossed arms. You'll later write, "I had so hoped to find sympathy and pity among these women of the forest, but instead I sat cowed and trembling, scarcely daring to breathe." Ottawa enters his teepee, proudly displaying the treasures taken from the raid. His wives immediately begin fighting over the materials and clothes. The eldest wife pulls out a knife and declares that she alone will decide who gets what, threatening to kill anyone who disagrees. Ottawa watches this display with amusement before leaving for a feast. Left alone with these hostile women, you distance yourself, standing apart. Soon, curious visitors arrive. Many women and children from throughout the village come to the chief's tent, apparently to look at you. Captives are clearly a novelty here. Something unexpected catches your attention. Many of the children have fair skin, much lighter than the full-blooded Lakota. Noticing your confusion, one of Ottawa's wives who knows some English explains. "Fort children," she says, gesturing to the fair-skinned toddlers. "Women go to fort, get food, stay with soldiers." She explains that many Lakota women would spend time around places like Fort Laramie to receive rations and goods from soldiers in exchange for companionship. These unions resulted in pale-skinned children who were often teased by full-blooded Indians. "Soldiers take Indian wives until white wife comes," she continues, mimicking a woman being pushed away. "Then Indian wife go back to village with baby." The realization is unsettling. These children are living evidence of the complex, often exploitative relationship between white settlers and native tribes. Judging from the number of fair-skinned children around you, it's a common occurrence. "Child of two worlds," the woman says, touching a small boy's light hair. "Not welcome in either." As days pass, Ottawa's wives and others in the village grow more accustomed to your presence. Their initial hostility softens somewhat. They bring you food and even help dress your wounds from the long journey. One morning, Ottawa enters the teepee with a small Lakota girl. He presents her to you, saying, "Yellowbird, your daughter now." You stare at the child in confusion. "Replace one you lost," he says in broken English. The meaning hits you like a physical blow. This child is meant to replace Mary, but instead of comfort, her presence brings only renewed grief, a stark reminder of your adopted daughter whom you may never see again. Yellowbird approaches you tentatively. She's perhaps 4 or 5 with dark eyes that watch you without fear. Despite your inner turmoil, you find yourself responding to her innocent trust. What else can you do? Reject her and risk angering Ottawa? The oldest wife, seeing your interaction with Yellowbird, unexpectedly shows kindness. She shares her tea with you to help you sleep. Despite her earlier display of temper with the other wives, she's become oddly protective of you. That night, you and Yellowbird curl up together in the teepee. The little girl's warm body next to yours provides an unexpected comfort. You realize it's your first good night's sleep since being taken captive. Sleep, the old wife says, nodding approvingly. Tomorrow, much work. And she's right. Your days quickly fill with labor. Cooking, cleaning, carrying water, scraping hides, gathering wood. You're expected to earn your keep as the lowest-ranking member of the household. The work is backbreaking, especially for someone raised as a white settler with no knowledge of Lakota ways. Your hands blister and bleed as you learn to process buffalo hides. Your back aches from carrying water from the river, but the physical pain is almost welcome. It keeps your mind from dwelling on darker thoughts. No, an older woman says, taking a hide from your hands. Like this. She shows you the proper technique for scraping, her weathered hands moving with practiced efficiency. You try to mimic her movements. Better, she nods, but her expression says it's still not good enough. Everything here requires skills you've never learned. Making pemmican, tanning hides, constructing and breaking down teepees, preserving food for winter. The Lakota women have been doing these tasks since childhood. You're starting from nothing. White hands, a young woman laughs, pointing at your blisters. Soft like baby. You laugh despite yourself. Not soft anymore, you say, showing her your calluses. The woman nods approvingly. Soon strong like Lakota. One morning, a group of women invite you to join them at the river to wash clothes. It's the first time you've been included in a social activity, and you accept eagerly, grateful for any chance to feel human connection. At the riverbank, the women chatter and laugh as they work. You can't understand most of what they're saying, but the camaraderie is familiar. Women working together, sharing the load. For a moment, it almost feels normal, until one woman asks, "You have husband before?" "Yes," you say, thinking of Josiah. "My husband is looking for me." The women exchange glances. One makes a slashing motion across her throat and they all laugh. Your momentary comfort evaporates. "White man dead or gone," says the woman who knows English. "Maybe new husband soon." Your stomach churns at the implication. Marriage to a Lakota warrior wasn't something you'd considered as part of your captivity. Later that day, back at Ottawa's lodge, you notice Jumping Bear speaking with the chief. They keep looking in your direction. The conversation seems intense, with Jumping Bear gesturing emphatically while Ottawa shakes his head. "What are they saying?" you ask one of Ottawa's younger wives. She smiles slyly. "He want to buy you." "Buy me? Like trade?" She nods. Jumping Bear offer many horses for white woman. The idea of being traded like property makes your skin crawl, yet you find yourself hoping Ottawa agrees to Jumping Bear's offer. At least he's shown you kindness. At least he doesn't beat you or threaten you with death. But Ottawa refuses, sending Jumping Bear away with angry words. You watch your potential protector leave with a sinking heart. That night, as Yellowbird sleeps beside you, you stare into the darkness overhead. The smoke hole at the top of the teepee frames a patch of star-filled sky. The same stars that shine over your home, over wherever Josiah might be searching for you, over the place where Mary might be safe. Or not. Tears slip silently down your temples. During the day, you can keep the despair at bay through constant work and vigilance, but at night, alone with your thoughts, the full weight of your situation crashes down. You're hundreds of miles from home, captive among people who see you as property. Your husband, if he's still alive, has no way to find you. Mary is either dead or lost to you forever. No one is coming to your rescue. This teepee, this village, this life of servitude, this might be all you have left, yet somewhere deep inside, beyond the grief and fear, a small flame of determination still burns. You will survive this. You will find a way home. You have to believe that. because the alternative is too unbearable to contemplate. As you drift toward uneasy sleep, you have no idea that your ordeal is just beginning. The Lakota are about to go to war with the United States, and you'll be caught in the middle of a conflict far bigger than your own small tragedy. The smell of roasting meat wakes you. Your stomach growls instantly, a visceral reminder of how little you've eaten these past weeks. You open your eyes to the familiar hide walls of Ottawa's teepee, Yellowbird's small body curled against yours. Something's different today. There's unusual activity outside, more voices, a sense of excitement rippling through the village. Up! Ottawa's eldest wife grunts, nudging you with her foot. Chief, want you. You rise quickly, helping Yellowbird to her feet as well. The little girl has become your shadow, following you everywhere with quiet, watchful eyes. Her presence is both a comfort and a burden, a reminder of Mary, yet also someone who genuinely seems to care whether you live or die. Outside, the July sun beats down on a village transformed by visitors. Warriors from other bands have arrived, their horses increasing the already substantial herd grazing beyond the teepees. Men gather in groups, talking animatedly, examining weapons. What's happening? You ask the eldest wife. She gives you a look that suggests you should already know. Feast day, big council. Ottawa himself appears, dressed more elaborately than you've seen before. Extra feathers, additional paint streaks across his face, his finest beadwork adorning his clothing. Come, he orders you directly. No translation needed. He leads you toward the center of the village where a large fire pit has been prepared. To your surprise, you're directed to sit on a raised platform of sorts, not with the wives or other women, but in a position of visibility. The arrangement makes you deeply uneasy. Why display you like this? Your question is answered as warriors begin to gather. They stare at you openly, some with curiosity, others with unmistakable hostility. You're being presented as a trophy, living proof of Ottawa's successful raid. But that's not the most disturbing thing. As more men assemble, you notice what many of them carry. Scalps, human scalps hanging from their belts, some fresh, some clearly older. Your stomach churns at the sight, knowing these came from people like you, settlers, travellers, perhaps even soldiers. And then it gets worse. The scalps are hung on poles around where you're sitting. This isn't just a feast, it's some kind of war council, and you're literally surrounded by the remains of your people. Jesus, you whisper, fighting the urge to vomit. You focus on your breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Don't show fear, don't show disgust, just survive this moment. Speeches begin, long, passionate declarations in Lakota that you can't understand, but the tone is clear enough. The speakers gesture toward the east frequently. They raise weapons. The crowd responds with approving shouts. They speak of war, says a voice beside you. It's Jumping Bear, who has appeared without you noticing, against white soldiers. Why? You ask, keeping your voice low. White general comes, Sully, kills our people, takes our land. His face hardens. We fight. The speeches and chanting continue into the night. Warriors dance around the fire, their movements becoming more frenzied as darkness falls. The flickering flames cast monstrous shadows across the gathered faces. Drums pound in rhythm that seems to match your heartbeat. You sit rigid through it all, a white woman among hundreds of Lakota preparing for war against your people. Your very presence is a contradiction, enemy and trophy, and something else you can't quite define. As you watch the celebrations, something unexpected happens. You begin to listen, really listen. Between the speeches and chants, people talk, and as you've learned more Lakota words over the weeks, you catch fragments of conversations. They speak of hunting grounds destroyed by settlers' wagons, buffalo driven away, forests cut down, water sources polluted, promises broken by the US government, treaties ignored. The whites cut forests, an older warrior tells the crowd, his face lined with bitterness. Kill buffalo not for food but for sport. Leave to rot, our children hungry while animals waste. You've never considered this perspective before. In your mind, the frontier was empty land, waiting to be settled, free for the taking. But listening to these voices, angry, passionate, desperate, you realize this land wasn't empty at all. It was home. This doesn't excuse the violence, the raids, the scalping, but for the first time you glimpse the complex reality beneath the simple stories of savage Indians you grew up hearing. The feast ends late, but sleep doesn't come easily. Your mind churns with all you've witnessed. War is coming. What will that mean for you? Morning brings your answer. The village erupts into activity at first light. Warriors paint themselves and prepare weapons. But it's not just the men. Everyone is moving with purpose. Women take down teepees with practiced efficiency, packing belongings onto horses and travois to be dragged by dogs. What's happening? You ask one of Ottawa's wives as she hurriedly gathers cooking implements. Moving camp, she explains. Not safe here with soldiers coming. Within hours, the once sprawling village is reduced to just people, animals, and bundles. Everything they own can be transported. It's an impressive feat of mobility. These people can relocate their entire community faster than most white families could pack a single house. You're given a horse to ride, joining the women, children, and elderly who will travel to a safer location while the warriors confront General Sully's forces. Yellowbird rides with you, her small arms wrapped around your waist. Soldiers kill children too, she says matter-of-factly, and the simplicity of her statement breaks your heart. The procession moves out, heading deeper into Lakota territory. You're not privy to military plans, but it's clear the warriors are leading Sully's forces away from where the non-combatants are heading. For 3 days, you travel with this group, helping set up a smaller, temporary camp. The atmosphere is tense. Women scan the horizon constantly, ready to flee again if necessary. Then the warriors return. Their whoops of victory reach the camp before they're even visible. When they crest the hill, the women rush out to meet them. The men are displaying scalps, fresh ones, and captured weapons. Their celebration makes it clear this skirmish went in favor of the Lakota. You don't know what happened to Sully's men, how many died, whether they retreated or were massacred. But the evidence of violence is unmistakable. To your horror, Ottawa comes directly to you. He pulls you from your tasks and has you painted, actual war paint applied to your white skin. Then, as the victory celebration continues, you're made to hold the staff carrying their trophies. Human scalps sway before your eyes as warriors dance around you. The message is clear. See what we do to your people. You could be next. According to what you'll later write, the warriors jumped around in a circle, brandishing their weapons and whooping and yelling the war cry in the most frightful manner. All jumped upon both feet at the same time with simultaneous stamping and motions with their weapons, keeping exact time. Their gestures impressed me as if they were actually cutting and carving each other to pieces as they uttered their fearful, sharp yells. To your eyes, they seem demonic in their victory frenzy, but now, understanding more, you see something else too. Pride, relief, the exhilaration of people who successfully defended their home. A bizarre thought crosses your mind. In different circumstances, if you were Lakota, you might be celebrating too. The victory proves temporary. Just days later, word reaches the camp that General Sully has regrouped. He's coming again with more men and artillery this time. Ottawa and the other chiefs gather quickly to discuss options. You've learned enough Lakota by now to understand the basics. This force is too large to confront directly. The only option is to retreat. Sully say he give us most severe punishment Indians ever receive, translates Jumping Bear, who's managed to find moments to speak with you despite Ottawa's disapproval. Many soldiers, big guns. By dawn, the camp is again in motion. Warriors still capable of fighting prepare to engage in delaying tactics while the main group, you included, flees toward the Badlands. This retreat is far more desperate than the previous one. You travel until sundown without breaks, finally stopping when you reach the Missouri River. You're dehydrated, sunburned, and exhausted. Your eyes constantly scan the horizon, hoping against hope to see US soldiers who might rescue you. "Looking for blue coats?" asks one of Ottawa's wives with a knowing smirk. You don't answer, but your face must betray you. "They not come for one white woman," she says. "Not worth it." That night, under a sky so vast and star-filled it almost hurts to look at, you wonder if she's right. Does anyone even know you're alive? Is anyone looking for you? Or have they all assumed you're dead, another casualty of the frontier? The next day brings a new development. Wounded warriors arrive in camp. To your surprise, you're called to help treat them. Your initial reluctance fades when you see the extent of their injuries. Whatever your feelings about the Lakota, basic human compassion kicks in. You clean wounds, apply poultices as directed by the tribal healers, and help bind injuries. Your gentle touch and focused care earn nods of approval from the Lakota women. "Good hands," says one elderly healer. "Steady." It's strange to feel pride in this context, but there it is, a small glow of satisfaction that you've done something well, something useful, something that might, in some small way, improve your standing among these people. The tribe continues its retreat into the Badlands, a desolate territory of rugged terrain, sparse vegetation, and extreme temperatures. They hope General Sully won't follow them there, but Sully proves more determined than they anticipated. "White General still comes," reports a scout, his horse lathered with sweat from hard riding, many soldiers not stopping. The news sends a fresh wave of panic through the camp. The pace increases. People begin abandoning supplies to travel lighter and faster. Lodge coverings, clothes, tools, blankets, cooking utensils, anything not absolutely essential for immediate survival. You watch as generations of carefully crafted possessions are left behind. Beautiful beadwork, intricate quill work, items that took months to create, all abandoned in the desperate flight. The horses, already thin from hard travel, are beaten to continue. Some collapse from exhaustion. The tribe pushes on, finally crossing the Yellowstone River to escape Sully's pursuit. Later, when warriors go back to collect some of their abandoned supplies, they return with grim news. Sully's men have burned everything. Teepees, food stores, winter clothing, tools, all deliberately destroyed. "They not want fight us," says Jumping Bear bitterly. "They want starve us, kill by winter." The strategy is cruelly effective. With winter approaching and their supplies destroyed, the tribe faces a dire situation. Food becomes increasingly scarce. Game is hard to find in the Badlands. The few horses and dogs that die of exhaustion are butchered and eaten, but there's never enough. Hunger becomes your constant companion. Your already thin frame grows gaunt. The smallest tasks require enormous effort. You're often denied what little food is available, as the warriors and children are fed first. You resort to eating grass and whatever edible plants you can identify. The communal crisis affects everyone's temperament. People who were previously kind grow irritable and suspicious. Arguments break out over the smallest things. The thin veneer of acceptance you'd built begins to crack. One morning, you wake to news that the warriors who had been fighting Sully's forces have returned. But this isn't like before. There's no celebration, no display of trophies. These men are defeated, some wounded, all exhausted and demoralized. The entire tribe gathers to mourn their dead. You watch, both fascinated and disturbed, as the grief rituals unfold. They inflicted gashes an inch in length on their bodies and limbs, you'll later write. Some cut off their hair, blackened their faces, and marched to the village in procession, wailing and torturing their bodies. The collective grief turns to anger, and predictably, much of that anger focuses on you, the only white person present, a living symbol of the enemy that's causing their suffering. Ottawa and other chiefs bring you to a council. In the centre of their circle, a stake has been placed in the ground, surrounded with sticks and kindling. The meaning is unmistakable. As the pipe is passed among the chiefs, some declare that the only justice they can inflict for their losses would be to kill all whites, starting with you. The Lakota debate whether to burn you alive. Your heart pounds so hard you fear it might burst. After everything you've survived, it can't end like this, tied to a stake and burned while an entire village watches. But then, unexpectedly, Jumping Bear stands. He wasn't with the other chiefs, but his voice cuts through the angry murmurs. Vengeance is our right, he says in Lakota, which you've now learned enough to partially understand. But this woman, since her capture, has been kind to us. She is innocent. Our children love her as a sister. She should not be punished for the sins of her people. His words seem to reach even the angriest warriors. The tension shifts. The chiefs confer quietly, then abandon the plan to burn you. You can breathe again. But while leaving the council, you know this reprieve is temporary. Your survival remains precarious. The next few weeks bring a new enemy more devastating than any military force: starvation. The tribe has abandoned everything in their flight from Sully. Now, deep in the Badlands, with winter approaching, there's simply not enough food. You grow so weak that completing your required chores becomes nearly impossible. Your ribs protrude, your cheeks hollow out, your hair falls out in clumps. You're constantly lightheaded from hunger. Ottawa's eldest wife, once your grudging protector, grows increasingly hostile as resources dwindle. She watches with narrowed eyes when another Indian woman takes pity on you and shares meat from her husband's recent deer hunt. That night, I saw rage in her eyes, you'll later recall. Hunger and jealousy made her dangerous. The breaking point comes when the old woman draws her knife, vowing to kill you for taking food that could go to Lakota children. You run, terrified, searching for Ottawa. He tries to intervene, but his elder wife's rage cannot be contained. When Ottawa places himself between you and his wife, she stabs him several times in a blind fury. Another Indian, seeing the commotion and assuming you must be the cause, pulls out a revolver and fires multiple shots at you. The bullets miss, but one lodges in Ottawa's arm. Chaos erupts. You run, expecting to be killed on the spot. But warriors quickly capture you. To your shock, instead of punishment, you're brought to Ottawa's teepee. The chief lies bleeding from the stab wounds and gunshot. He's severely injured, and you're left to dress his wounds. You never see the elder wife again. No one tells you what happened to her, and you don't ask. For the next few weeks, your primary role is tending to Ottawa. The blood loss and bullet wound have significantly weakened him, but even in this state he works to strengthen the tribe's position. With so many of their original supplies destroyed by Sully's forces, Ottawa looks to forge alliances with other bands. He arranges to marry the daughter of another chief, hoping this union will strengthen his tribe against future attacks. Having lost nearly all his tradable goods, Ottawa looks to you, or rather, what little you have left. He takes your shoes, the ones you've managed to keep since your capture, as a gift for his new bride. She accepts them gladly. You watch with a strange detachment as your last personal possessions become tokens in tribal politics. The fine shoes you wore as a settler's wife, now on the feet of a Lakota chief's newest bride, a bizarre symbol of how completely your old life has been stripped away. As autumn deepens in the Badlands, you've adjusted somewhat to your captive life. You speak enough Lakota to communicate basic needs. You've learned their customs well enough to avoid major offenses. You've formed a genuine bond with Yellowbird, the child given to replace Mary. But you never stop looking for an opportunity to escape. Every day you study the patterns of the village, note which warriors guard which areas, observe where horses are kept. You memorize landmarks, try to determine directions. If a chance comes, you'll be ready. What you don't know is that far away, people haven't forgotten you. Your husband Josiah has been searching relentlessly. The US military has become aware of your captivity, and events are already in motion that will dramatically change your circumstances. But before rescue, you'll face even darker moments among the Lakota. The worst pain is yet to come. A revelation so devastating it will nearly break your spirit entirely. You've stopped dreaming about rescue. It's been months now. The initial shock of captivity has faded into a dull, persistent ache, like a broken bone that's healed wrong. You've learned to speak Lakota well enough to understand most conversations. You know the proper way to erect a teepee, how to prepare pemmican, which plants are safe to eat when there's no meat. Your hands, once soft from settler life, have grown calloused and strong. Some nights, lying beside Yellowbird in Ottawa's teepee, you can almost forget this isn't your real life. Almost. But then morning comes, and with it the knowledge that you're still a captive, still hundreds of miles from anything familiar, still surrounded by people who see you as property, still uncertain if anyone you loved is alive or searching for you. The Lakota have been moving constantly through the Badlands, staying ahead of General Sully's forces while searching for game. Ottawa has recovered enough from his wounds to travel, though he remains weakened. His new marriage alliance has brought some unfamiliar faces into the band. Warriors from other Lakota groups joining forces against the increasing military pressure. Today's journey is particularly grueling. The terrain is harsh, rocky outcroppings, sparse vegetation, extreme temperature swings between day and night. Water is scarce, forcing long detours to find reliable sources. By midday, your lips are cracked, your throat parched. You ride with Yellowbird, the little girl dozing against your back in the afternoon heat. The child has become your tether to sanity, someone to care for, someone who cares whether you live or die. You've stopped thinking of her as a replacement for Mary and started seeing her as a person in her own right. A warrior you don't recognize rides up beside you. He's from one of the newly allied bands, younger than many, with sharp eyes that study you with unsettling intensity. He doesn't speak, just matches his horse's pace to yours. Something about him makes your skin crawl. You focus straight ahead, hoping he'll lose interest and ride elsewhere. Then you notice what hangs from his saddle. A small shawl, your shawl, the one you wrapped around Mary on that terrible night when you lowered her from the horse and into the darkness. The world seems to stop. Your lungs forget how to draw air. Your vision narrows to that single piece of cloth, frayed at the edges now, stained with dirt, but unmistakably yours, unmistakably Mary's. Then you see what hangs beside it. A small scalp with fair hair. No, you whisper, the word barely audible over the pounding of blood in your ears. The warrior notices your gaze. His face remains impassive, but there's a glint in his eye. Pleasure at your recognition, your horror. You fall from your horse. Later, you'll write that you dropped to the ground as if dead, and in that moment, part of you does die. Every hope you've secretly harboured, that Mary escaped, that she found help, that she's safe somewhere, perhaps even reunited with Josiah, all of it collapses under the unbearable weight of what hangs from that warrior's saddle. My eyes rested on the frightful sight, you'll later write. I trembled in my saddle and grasped the air for support. A blood-red cloud seemed to come between me and the outer world. You lie in the dirt, unable to move, barely able to breathe. The warriors try to get you to stand, to continue the journey. You beg them to kill you. They don't. They simply leave you there. After what feels like hours, someone helps you back onto your horse. Yellowbird's small hands touch your face, wiping away tears you didn't know were falling. "Why sad?" she asks in Lakota. You can't answer. How do you explain to a child that you've just seen proof her people murdered your child? That the girl you were forced to abandon is definitely dead, her hair taken as a trophy by the very people you now live among? Sick, you manage to say. Heart sick. She nods solemnly, as though this makes perfect sense. Perhaps it does. Perhaps even a child in this harsh world understands that some pains go beyond physical ailments. The days that follow pass in a fog of grief. You perform your tasks mechanically, eat without tasting, speak only when absolutely necessary. Even Yellowbird's presence brings little comfort now. Every time you look at her, you think of Mary, and the pain is fresh again. You now understand why Ottawa gave Yellowbird to you, what he meant when he said she was to replace the one you lost. He knew all along. They all knew. Somewhere in the blackness of your despair, a new emotion takes root. Hatred, pure burning hatred for the people who murdered your child, who took her hair as a trophy, who forced you to live among them and serve them. You imagine finding a knife, waiting until night, slitting Ottawa's throat while he sleeps. You picture setting fire to the entire camp, watching it burn with all of them inside. But these are just fantasies. The reality is that you're one woman among hundreds of warriors. Any attempt at revenge would end with your immediate death, and despite everything, some stubborn part of you still wants to live, so you endure. Day after day, you wake up, you work, you eat what little food is available, you sleep. You speak when spoken to. You obey orders. You survive because the alternative is to give up, and something in you refuses to give them that satisfaction. Weeks of mindless routine pass this way. The tribe continues moving through the Badlands, always one step ahead of starvation. The game is scarce, the edible plants few and far between. Everyone is hungry, but as a captive, you're last in line for food. Your body, already thin, becomes skeletal. Your hair falls out in clumps. Your gums bleed. Simple tasks leave you dizzy from exertion. Then one day, something unexpected happens. A well-dressed Indian rides into the village on a handsome horse. Unlike the ragged, hungry warriors you've grown accustomed to seeing, this man looks healthy and prosperous. His clothing is fine, his horse strong and well-fed. You notice him immediately, but he doesn't approach you right away. For several days he observes from a distance, conferring with Ottawa and other leaders. Finally, he comes to you as you're scraping a hide outside Ottawa's teepee. "You Fanny Kelly?" he asks in surprisingly good English. You're so shocked to hear your full name that for a moment you can't respond. "Yes," you finally manage. "I am." He reaches into his clothing and produces a folded paper. From Captain Marshall, 11th Cavalry. Your hands shake as you take the letter. It's been so long since you've seen English words on paper. The handwriting is neat, formal, the script of an educated military man. The letter explains that the US military knows you're alive. They've made several attempts to rescue you. They've sent this man, Porcupine, a friendly Indian, to bring you back, rewarding him with provisions, including the fine clothes and horse you noticed. Most importantly, the letter says Porcupine can be trusted because the fort has his 3 wives as hostages, ensuring his cooperation. Hope, so long absent, flares painfully in your chest. This is it, your chance at freedom, at returning to whatever remains of your old life. Maybe Josiah is waiting at the fort. Maybe there's still a future for you beyond captivity. You look up at Porcupine, tears blurring your vision. When do we leave? His expression shifts, a sly smile replacing his previously neutral face. We don't? What do you mean? I not take you back, he says simply. I join Lakota, fight whites. The hope that had briefly lightened your heart crashes down, heavier than before. But your wives, you stammer. The hostages, Porcupine laughs. White soldiers are cowards. They never kill women. I will deceive them as I have done before. Please, you beg, clutching the letter that now feels like cruel mockery. Please, help me. He shakes his head. I tell them you died. Sickness. He makes a coughing sound, then laughs again at his own joke. With that, he walks away, leaving you kneeling in the dirt, the letter crumpled in your fist. This betrayal, learning that people know where you are but still can't help you, is almost as devastating as discovering Mary's fate. Almost, but not quite. Nothing could match that pain. Still you cling to one small comfort. People are looking for you. The military knows you exist. Your captivity hasn't been forgotten by the outside world. It's a thin thread of hope, but you grasp it tightly. The tribe continues to struggle with starvation as they stay in the Badlands. The warriors hunt constantly but return with less and less game. The women dig for roots, gather what edible plants they can find, but it's never enough. Children cry from hunger. Even the dogs grow gaunt, their ribs visible through matted fur. One day, you narrowly escape a prairie fire that sweeps through the area where you're gathering plants. You run back to camp, breathless, only to find Ottawa's newest wife waiting with fresh accusations. You bring bad luck, she hisses in Lakota. Since you come, only bad things happen. You've learned enough about Lakota beliefs to know many consider you a bad medicine, a source of misfortune. Some believe your presence is why game is scarce, why Sully pursues them so relentlessly, why the weather has been particularly harsh. That's not true, you reply, in her language. These things would happen whether I was here or not. She spits at your feet. Ottawa should have killed you long ago. You don't argue further. What's the point? In her position, you might believe the same thing. When life becomes unbearably hard, humans need something or someone to blame. As the outsider, the enemy, you're the obvious choice. The relationship between you and Ottawa's newest wife grows increasingly tense. Unlike the elder wife who initially hated you but eventually showed protection, this woman's animosity only deepens with time. She watches you constantly, looking for mistakes, for reasons to punish you. She sabotage, she tells Ottawa one evening, pointing at a torn piece of hide you've been working on. Waste good buffalo skin. The tear happened accidentally. Your hands were trembling from hunger and fatigue. But Ottawa doesn't ask for your explanation. He simply strikes you across the face, hard enough to split your lip. Next time, no food 3 days, he says coldly. You nod, tasting blood, knowing any protest would only make things worse. That night, as you lie beside Yellowbird, the little girl touches your swollen lip gently. Why Ottawa hurt? She asks. Because I made a mistake, you say softly. She shakes her head, her expression serious beyond her years. No, because he can. The simple truth of a child. Ottawa hurts you because he can, because you're property, not a person, because in this world power is everything and you have none. After 5 months with the Lakota, you've lost track of exact dates, but you know winter is approaching, the nights grow colder, frost appears on the ground in the mornings, the tribe begins preparing for the harsh season ahead, but with their supplies depleted and game scarce, the prospect is grim. One morning, a commotion at the edge of camp draws everyone's attention. A band of Blackfoot Lakota, a different band than Ottawa's Oglala, have arrived. They've come to bargain, but not for the usual trade goods. They've come for you. From snippets of conversation, you learn that the American military is refusing local Indians winter supplies because they know the tribes are holding a white woman captive. They want you returned to Fort Sully. A council between the two groups lasts 2 days. Ottawa doesn't want to give you up. You're his property, his trophy, but the Blackfoot are insistent. Eventually, they reach a compromise, one that satisfies both groups' desire for revenge against the whites. The Blackfoot will take you to the fort as your rescuers, but once inside, they plan to slaughter the soldiers and return you to Ottawa. The thought of being used as bait in a massacre horrifies you. You want nothing more than to be reunited with your people, but not at the cost of leading them into a trap. I won't do it, you tell Jumping Bear, who has explained the plan to you. I won't help them kill soldiers. He studies your face. Then you never leave. Die here, starving, when winter comes. The impossible choice tears at you. Refuse to cooperate and remain a captive, possibly dying of starvation in the coming winter, or agree to the plan, potentially reaching safety, but at the cost of leading others into an ambush. Before you can decide, the choice is made for you. The Blackfoot leave 3 horses with Ottawa as collateral for your return after they fulfill their plan. You're going, whether you want to or not. Among 50 armed and painted warriors, you travel 150 miles to the Blackfoot camp. The journey is exhausting and cold, but when you arrive, you're met with an unexpected celebration. The chief's wife approaches you with surprising kindness. "You be safe here," she says in broken English. "Anyone hurt you? Big trouble." This protection is welcome, especially when you learn you'll have many visitors. The Blackfoot are not the only ones incentivized by the US to return captives. Other groups hope to pick up rations to help them survive the coming winter. The Yankton are the first to visit, expressing their desire to purchase you. The Blackfoot chief refuses. After several other bands make similar offers, the Blackfoot begin hiding you. One night, an Indian even cuts into your teepee in an attempt to kidnap you. You've become valuable, a commodity to be traded rather than a person to be rescued. Poor weather, including snowdrifts, delays the Blackfoot's plan to take you to the fort. As you wait, an old protector reappears. Jumping Bear arrives in the Blackfoot village. Having heard of their possession of you, though he's been gone for some time, his affection for you clearly hasn't changed. One evening, as you sit by a small fire outside your teepee, he approaches and sits beside you. "I think of you," he says simply, "many days, many nights." You don't know how to respond. This man has protected you multiple times, shown you kindness when others showed cruelty, but he's still one of them, the people who killed Mary, who've kept you captive, who've made your life a waking nightmare for months. Yet looking at him now, his face lined with genuine concern, you see an opportunity, perhaps your only opportunity. "If you truly care for me," you say carefully, "there is something you could do." He leans closer. "What?" "Carry a letter to my people at the fort. Deliver it personally to General Sully." Jumping Bear pulls back, instantly wary. "Letter say what?" You choose your next words with extreme care. "It would say that you have been kind to me, that you should be rewarded." You pause, then add, "The army would give you a fine horse so you could return with your prizes." He's tempted. You can see it in his eyes, but still hesitant. "Letter not harm my people." "No." you lie. I promise. In truth, you plan to warn the general about the surprise attack, to beg the soldiers to rescue you while exposing the Blackfoot plot, but Jumping Bear doesn't need to know that. The letter speaks well of you, you insist. Come back with your reward and prove your friendship. After further persuasion, he finally agrees and takes the letter you've carefully composed using materials provided by the chief's wife, who believes you're writing to arrange proper payment for your rescuers. Within days after Jumping Bear leaves, the snow clears enough for the Blackfoot to move forward with their plan. Your heart races as preparations begin. Will your letter reach Sully in time? Will Jumping Bear actually deliver it, or read it himself and discover your deception? Your future balances on impossibly thin ice. If your warning doesn't reach the fort before you arrive with the Blackfoot, you'll be responsible for a massacre. If it does reach them, you might finally gain your freedom. But at what cost to Jumping Bear, the one person who's consistently shown you kindness? As the Blackfoot War Party prepares for the journey to Fort Sully, you find yourself praying, not just for your own salvation, but for some outcome that doesn't result in more bloodshed. After months of witnessing the brutal cycle of violence between whites and natives, you've lost your taste for revenge. You just want it all to end, to go home, wherever home might be now, to sleep without fear, to live without constant hunger and degradation. The trip to Fort Sully in early December 1864 will be 200 miles through freezing cold. As you prepare for this journey, possibly your last as a captive or your last alive, you can't help wondering which fate awaits you at its end: freedom or death, rescue or betrayal. After everything you've endured, you know better than to count on any particular outcome. All you can do is continue to survive one day at a time and hope that somewhere in this brutal wilderness your letter has found its way to someone who can help you. The cold is different out here, not the gentle winter chill you might feel stepping outside your warm house in the morning. This cold is alive, malicious. It seeps through layers of clothing, finds every gap, every weakness. It burns your lungs with each breath. It turns fingers and toes into aching, useless appendages. This is the cold that kills. December in Dakota Territory. You're traveling with 50 Blackfoot warriors toward Fort Sully, 200 miles across snow-covered plains and frozen rivers. Your body, already weakened by months of captivity and near starvation, struggles to maintain even basic warmth. "Keep moving," one of the warriors grunts at you when you slow down. "Stop moving. You die." He's not threatening you. It's just a fact. In this weather, stopping means freezing to death. So you keep moving, one painful step after another. The snow crunches beneath your feet. Your breath forms clouds in front of your face. You can't feel your toes anymore, which is probably a bad sign, but there's nothing to be done about it. The Blackfoot move with practiced efficiency, accustomed to these brutal conditions. They've spent generations adapting to this environment, learning how to survive where others would perish. They build windbreaks at night, know how to find food in seemingly barren landscapes, understand exactly how long they can remain exposed before frostbite sets in. You, with your settler background and months of malnutrition, have no such advantages. Each day is a struggle just to keep up. "Think of warm place," advises the chief's wife, who's taken an unexpected interest in your welfare. "Think of fire, summer, hot springs. Mind helps body." You try, focusing on memories of summer afternoons, kitchen fires, wool blankets, but the biting wind keeps dragging you back to the frozen present. At night, huddled in borrowed buffalo robes around small fires, the warriors tell stories and make plans. You've learned enough Lakota to understand most of their conversations now. You listen carefully, hoping to gauge how committed they are to their plan to massacre the soldiers at Fort Sully. 50 warriors, good weapons, says one man, gesturing enthusiastically. We enter with woman, gain trust, then strike fast. Fort has many more soldiers, cautions an older warrior. Big guns. Surprise is advantage, argues the first. They not expect attack from inside. The debate continues night after night. Some warriors express confidence in the plan, others voice doubts, but all agree on one thing. They need those winter supplies. Without them, their families will starve before spring. You understand their desperation. You've witnessed firsthand the Lakota's struggle to survive after being pushed from their traditional hunting grounds, after having their caches and supplies destroyed by General Sully's forces. These are not monsters, despite what they did to your wagon train, despite what happened to Mary. They're people fighting for survival the only way they know how. That understanding doesn't change your determination to warn the fort, of course. Your loyalty remains with your own people. But the months among the Lakota have at least given you insight into the complex reality beyond the simple, savage Indian narratives of your childhood. 3 days into the journey, something unexpected happens. A young warrior who's been assigned to guard you at night begins speaking to you in surprisingly good English. You write letter, he says quietly, eyes darting around to ensure no one overhears. With jumping bear, your heart stops. What do you mean? I see, not say nothing. He pauses, then adds, letter, say attack plan. Panic floods your system. If the Blackfoot discover you've warned the fort about their planned ambush, they'll kill you immediately. But something in the young man's expression gives you pause. He doesn't seem angry. Why are you telling me this? You ask cautiously. He stares into the fire for a long moment. I have white father, he finally says. At fort, maybe. The revelation stuns you. This young warrior, barely more than a boy, really, is one of the fort children you've seen throughout the Lakota camps. Children born to native women after relationships with white soldiers or traders. He know me? The boy asks, vulnerability breaking through his stoic facade. If I go there? The question breaks your heart. I don't know, you answer honestly. Maybe. He nods, disappointed but not surprised. I think not. You want to offer some comfort, but what can you say? The harsh reality is that many white fathers didn't acknowledge their mixed-race children. This boy exists between two worlds, belonging fully to neither. I not want killing, he confesses. Too much already. With that, he falls silent, returning to his role as your guard. But something has changed between you. An unspoken alliance formed in that brief conversation. Neither of you mentions it again, but occasionally, when no one else is looking, he brings you extra food or water. Small mercies in an unmerciful situation. As the journey continues, your physical condition deteriorates. The combination of cold, inadequate food, and exhaustion takes its toll. Fever sets in, bringing with it delirious dreams where past and present blur together. You see Mary calling to you from snow-covered hills. You see Josiah searching for you in endless forests. You see Ottawa's knife, the warrior's scalp collection, the flames of the council fire where they debated burning you alive. She dying, you hear someone say through the fog of your fever. No good to trade, dead woman. Keep moving, another voice insists. Reach fort soon. Hands lift you onto a horse when you can no longer walk. Someone wraps an extra buffalo robe around your shoulders. The journey continues. Your awareness fading in and out like a candle flame in the wind. After what feels like both an eternity and an instant, the fever breaks, leaving you weak but lucid. The chief's wife offers a bitter herbal tea. "Drink," she orders. "Make strength." You obey, gagging at the taste, but recognizing the kindness behind the gesture. With the fever gone, you realize how close you came to dying, not from Lakota weapons or cruelty, but from the simple brutality of winter on the plains. 2 days more, the chief tells you through his wife's translation, then fought 2 more days. After nearly 6 months of captivity, freedom is just 2 days away. If your letter reached General Sully, if Jumping Bear kept his word, if the fort doesn't just shoot at the approaching war party without asking questions, so many ifs. The closer you get to Fort Sully, the more tense the warriors become. They check their weapons constantly. They send scouts ahead to evaluate the fort's defenses. They hold councils each night to refine their attack plan. The night before you're set to arrive at the fort, the Blackfoot chief calls the entire war party together. You're brought to sit near the fire, not as a participant in their council, but as the central object of their scheme. The chief stands, firelight casting dramatic shadows across his painted face. He speaks in Lakota, but you understand most of it now. "Friends and sons, listen to my words," he begins, his voice carrying across the silent camp. "You are a great and powerful band of our people. The inferior race who have encroached on our rights and territories justly deserve hatred and destruction." Murmurs of agreement rise from the gathered warriors. The chief continues, his rhetoric building in intensity. "These intruders came among us, and we took them by the hand. We believed them to be friends and true speakers. They have shown us how false and cruel they can be. They build forts to live in and shoot from their big guns. Our people fall before them. Our game is chased from the hills. Our women are taken from us or won to forsake our lodges, wronged and deceived." He pauses, letting the grievances sink in, then delivers his call to action. "Meet them with equal cunning. Show them no mercy. They are but few, we are many. Whet your knives and string your bows. Sharpen the tomahawk and load the rifle." The warriors grunt with approval, their faces hardening with resolve. You sit perfectly still, trying to appear impassive while your mind races. This is really happening. Tomorrow, these men will attempt to enter Fort Sully under the guise of returning you, then slaughter everyone inside. Unless your letter reached them, unless they're prepared, you sleep fitfully that night, if it can even be called sleep. Every time you close your eyes, you see flashes of violence, imagined scenes of what tomorrow might bring. Either way, blood will be spilled. Either the soldiers or these warriors will die. There seems no path to a peaceful resolution. Dawn breaks clear and cold. The Blackfoot rise early, painting their faces and bodies with war symbols partially concealed under winter clothing. They prepare their weapons while maintaining the appearance of a peaceful delegation. 8 chiefs are selected to lead the procession with you. The rest of the war party will follow at a distance, ready to rush the fort once the gates open. You smile, the head chief instructs you through his wife. Look happy, rescued. You nod, understanding your role in this grim theatre. "What if I refuse?" the chief's wife translates, then returns his answer with an apologetic glance. "Then you die first." Simple enough. They dress you in a white cotton gown, preserved from the original raid, a stark symbol of your settler origins. A buffalo robe is placed across your shoulders for warmth. You're given their best horse, positioned between the chiefs. As you mount, the young warrior with the white father catches your eye briefly. He touches his heart, then points subtly toward the fort. A wish for your safety, a reminder of your shared secret. You can't be sure, but the gesture provides an unexpected moment of connection in this otherwise tense morning. The procession moves out. 8 chiefs in their finest regalia, you in your white dress on a decorated horse, and behind, at a careful distance, 42 heavily armed warriors ready for battle. The December sun offers light but little warmth as you travel the final miles. Snow blankets the landscape, creating an eerie stillness broken only by the sound of hooves and the occasional snort of horses. No one speaks. The moment for words has passed. Now comes action. Fort Sully appears on the horizon, a wooden structure rising from the white plains like an island in a frozen sea. Smoke rises from chimneys inside. American flags snap in the winter wind. Guards visible on the walls are small figures in blue against the pale sky. Your heart pounds so hard it seems impossible the chiefs riding beside you can't hear it. After almost 7 months in captivity, you're looking at a US military fort, your people, safety. If you can just get inside, if your letter reached them, the fort grows larger as you approach. You can make out individual soldiers now, their rifles glinting in the sunlight. They've spotted your group. There's movement along the walls, more men appearing, weapons ready. Look happy, the chief reminds you in Lakota. Smile. You arrange your features into what you hope resembles joy rather than terror. The chiefs maintain dignified expressions, betraying nothing of their true intentions. When you're about 100 yards from the gate, the chiefs halt the procession. The war party behind you also stops, waiting at a distance that won't raise immediate alarm but allows them to charge quickly when needed. This is it, the moment everything hinges on. A small gate opens. A captain, several officers, and an interpreter exit the fort, approaching your group cautiously. Their eyes move between the chiefs and you, assessing the situation. The captain steps forward, his gaze finding yours. "Fanny Kelly?" he asks. 2 words. "Your name?" Spoken by an American, by someone who knows who you are, who's expecting you. It takes everything in you not to collapse with relief. "Am I free?" you whisper, your voice cracking from emotion and disuse. "Am I free indeed?" The captain's response comes in a whisper that only you can hear. Yes. Everything after that happens in a blur of motion. The soldiers welcome you and the accompanying chiefs into the fort. The chiefs, believing their plan is working perfectly, signal for the rest of the war party to approach the gate. But as soon as the chiefs are inside, the pleasant demeanor of the soldiers vanishes. A loud voice booms out, ordering the gates closed. Armed men appear on the walls, rifles aimed at the approaching warriors. The trap has been reversed. The ambushers have become the ambushed. The Blackfoot war party, seeing their chiefs taken hostage and the fort's defences mobilised, pull back out of rifle range. Inside, the chiefs realise they've been betrayed. Their faces contort with fury as they look at you. "You!" the head chief snarls in Lakota, lunging toward you before soldiers restrain him. "You warned them!" You say nothing. You don't need to. In that moment, you know Jumping Bear delivered your letter. He kept his word despite knowing what it might contain. He chose your safety over his people's plan. The soldiers quickly secure the chiefs as hostages. The interpreter explains that they will be held until the rest of the war party disperses. No blood is shed, at least not yet. The situation balances on a knife's edge, but for the moment, violence has been averted. And you're finally free. A female attendant leads you away from the confrontation into the fort proper. The sudden transition from captivity to safety is disorienting. Wooden floors beneath your feet instead of frozen ground, walls and a roof. The smell of cooking food, real food, not the near-starvation diet you've endured for months. "You're safe now, Mrs. Kelly," the woman says gently, guiding you to a chair. "You're among friends." You sit, your legs suddenly unable to support you. The buffalo robe slides from your shoulders. The white dress, meant to symbolize your value as a captive, now feels like a costume from another life. "My husband," you manage to say. "Josiah Kelly, is he?" "Alive and searching for you still," the woman assures you. "We've sent word. He'll come as soon as possible." Alive. Josiah is alive. After all these months, after everything, you haven't lost everything. There's still someone waiting for you. "And Mary?" you ask, though you already know the answer. You saw the evidence yourself hanging from that warrior's saddle. The woman's hesitation confirms it. "I'm sorry," she says softly. "The search parties found remains, a child matching her description." You nod, the grief familiar now, almost an old companion after the weeks since you saw that fair-haired scalp. "I know," you whisper. "I already knew." A doctor arrives to examine you. He tries to be clinical, professional, but you see the shock in his eyes as he documents your condition. Severe malnutrition, frostbite on several toes, scars from beatings, infected wounds from the journey. You've been living so long with these ailments that you've almost forgotten they're not normal. "You'll recover," he tells you, though his expression suggests he's not entirely confident. With proper food, rest and care. Food arrives, a bowl of simple broth to start, nothing too rich for your shrunken stomach. You nearly weep at the taste. After months of near starvation, even plain broth tastes like a feast. As you sip slowly, savouring each spoonful, you find yourself in the strange position of having to answer questions, even as you have so many of your own. Officers need information about the Lakota, their numbers, locations, leaders, plans. You tell them what you know, leaving out certain details. You don't mention Jumping Bear's kindness or the young warrior with the white father. Some stories aren't yours to tell. Night falls on your first day of freedom. They provide a small private room with an actual bed, a luxury so profound you almost don't know how to react to it. Clean sheets, a pillow, a door that locks from the inside. But when you lie down, sleep doesn't come. The bed is too soft after months of sleeping on hard ground. The silence is too complete after the constant sounds of a Lakota camp. People talking, children crying, horses nickering, the wind against teepee covers. Most unsettling of all, you're alone. No yellowbird curled against you, no watchful eyes monitoring your movements, no community surrounding you. Hostile as it often was, it was still a presence, a reminder that you existed in the world. In the darkness of this military fort room, you could be anyone or no one at all. You rise, wrap a blanket around your shoulders and sit by the small window. Outside, the moon illuminates the snowy landscape. Somewhere out there, the Blackfoot War Party is deciding their next move. Somewhere farther, Ottawa's band continues their nomadic struggle for survival. And somewhere even more distant, Josiah is receiving word that against all odds, his wife has been found alive. After nearly 7 months in captivity, you're free. But freedom you're discovering is more complicated than you imagined. You're not the same woman who travelled hopefully along the Oregon Trail last May. That person died somewhere between the wagon train massacre and the Badlands. Who you are now, what you've become through this ordeal, remains to be seen. Tomorrow will bring reunions, decisions, the first tentative steps toward whatever your life will be after captivity. But tonight, in this quiet moment between worlds, you simply exist in the strange, liminal space of being neither captive nor fully free. Not of the memories, not of the nightmares, not of the person you became to survive. Freedom, it turns out, is its own kind of wilderness. Dawn at Fort Sully feels surreal, sunlight streaming through an actual window, warming your face as you sit wrapped in clean blankets. After months of waking to the sounds of a Lakota camp, the military fort's morning routines are jarringly foreign. Boots on wooden floors, orders called in English, the clatter of mess hall preparations. You've been free for 3 days now. 3 days of regular meals, medical attention, clean water, and safety. Your body is already responding. The constant gnawing hunger has subsided, though the doctor warns it will take months to fully recover from the malnutrition. Your husband should arrive today, the fort's commander tells you over a breakfast of porridge and coffee. Real coffee. You'd forgotten how it tastes. Today? Your hands tremble slightly, spilling a few drops on the table. Barring weather delays, the messenger reached him at Fort Rice 2 days ago. You nod, not trusting yourself to speak. What do you say to a man you never expected to see again? What does he say to a wife who spent nearly 7 months among the Lakota? Will he even recognize the gaunt, scarred woman you've become? The commander clears his throat, uncomfortable with your silence. There's also the matter of your debriefing. Washington will want a full report of your time with the hostiles, intelligence about their movements, numbers, leaders. Yes, of course, you reply automatically, though the thought of recounting everything in clinical detail makes your stomach clench. Particularly regarding their military capabilities, weapons, strategies, alliances between bands. You look down at your half-eaten porridge. I'll tell you what I can, but even as you say it, you realize there are things you won't share. The kindness Jumping Bear showed you, the young warrior with the white father who helped you, Yellowbird's small hands comforting you after you learned of Mary's fate. These memories feel private, complex in ways military reports can't accommodate. The Lakota were your captors, yes, sometimes cruel, sometimes terrifying, but they were also people, complicated, contradictory people trying to survive in a world that was rapidly changing around them. How do you explain that to men who see only enemies? A commotion outside interrupts your thoughts. Voices, excited, a horse arriving at full gallop, boots rushing across the yard. Mrs. Kelly, an officer appears in the doorway. Your husband is here. You rise, legs unsteady. Your hand automatically smooths your borrowed dress, touches your hair, still thin and brittle from months of malnutrition. What will he think of you now? They lead you to the fort's main building. Each step feels dreamlike, disconnected from reality, and then suddenly, there he is. Josiah stands in the center of the room, hat clutched in hands that have aged years in the months you've been apart. His face is thinner, hair greyer, eyes shadowed by what can only be described as grief given temporary reprieve. For a moment, neither of you moves. The space between you feels vast, unbridgeable. You're not the young bride who set out on the Oregon Trail. He's not the hopeful husband seeking better fortunes in Idaho. You're strangers shaped by separate traumas. Fanny, he finally whispers, voice breaking on those 2 simple syllables. Something cracks inside you, a dam holding back emotions you couldn't afford during captivity. You cross the room in unsteady steps, and then you're in his arms, sobbing against his chest, while he murmurs your name over and over like a prayer. I never stopped looking, he says into your hair. Never, when they found the wagons, the bodies, but not you. I knew you had to be alive. You want to ask about Mary, about whether he found her, about whether he knows what happened to her, but you can't form the words, not yet. This moment of reunion is fragile enough without that particular wound being reopened. Instead, you simply hold each other, 2 survivors clinging to a connection that somehow endured despite everything. Later, in private, you tell him about Mary. He already knows, had found her remains himself during his relentless search for both of you. The grief is a shared burden now, a jagged piece of your history that you carry together. I couldn't save her, you whisper, the guilt that's haunted you for months finally given voice. I tried to help her escape, but I couldn't save her. Josiah takes your hands, his own eyes wet with tears. You did everything possible, Fanny, everything. Don't carry that blame. But of course you do. How could you not? It will be years before the sharp edges of that guilt begin to dull. Recovery comes in small increments. The first night you sleep through without waking in terror. The first meal you finish without your shrunken stomach rebelling. The first time you laugh, genuinely laugh, at something Josiah says. Physical healing is straightforward, if slow. Proper nutrition gradually restores your strength. Frostbitten toes heal, though two are permanently damaged. Bruises fade, hair grows back, the body, remarkably resilient, repairs itself. Mental recovery proves more elusive. Nightmares plague your sleep, warriors chasing you across endless plains, Mary calling for help you can't provide, Ottawa's knife at your throat. You find yourself listening for sounds that don't exist here. Teepee coverings flapping in the wind, women pounding dried meat for pemmican, warriors chanting around evening fires. It's normal, the Fort's doctor assures you. Your mind is still adjusting. It will take time. Time. Everyone tells you that time will help. Time will heal. Time will create distance between you and the trauma. But time also blurs the boundaries between your two lives in unexpected ways. You find yourself automatically rising at dawn, body accustomed to the early starts required in a Lakota camp. You catch yourself using Lakota words for everyday objects. Sometimes you even miss certain aspects of that life. The open sky overhead at night, the communal aspects of women working together, even Yellowbird's small form curled against you in sleep. These moments of unexpected nostalgia feel like betrayals. How can you miss anything about your captivity? How can any part of you long for elements of a life that was forced upon you? The mind is complicated, Josiah says, when you finally confess these feelings. It doesn't mean you wanted to be there. It just means you're human. His understanding is a gift you hadn't expected. 2 weeks after your reunion, you and Josiah leave Fort Sully. The military has debriefed you as thoroughly as possible, extracting what information they consider valuable while showing little interest in your personal experiences. To them, you're primarily a source of intelligence about the enemy. You travel to Josiah's temporary home in a small settlement where he's been based during his search for you. The cabin is modest but solid, a far cry from both the covered wagon where your journey began and the teepees where you spent your captivity. It's not much, he apologizes. It has walls, you reply, touching the rough-hewn logs with something like reverence, and a door that closes. Simple luxuries that now feel profound. News of your rescue spreads quickly. You're a 9-day wonder, the white woman who survived almost 7 months with the Lakota and lived to tell the tale. People stare when you venture into the settlement. Some approach with uncomfortable questions, morbid curiosity barely disguised as concern. Did they, one woman asks, unable to actually articulate her real question. You look her directly in the eyes. They took everything I had, made me work from dawn to dusk, nearly starved me to death, and killed my adopted daughter. Isn't that enough? She retreats, flustered. You've learned that direct confrontation usually ends these intrusions. But not all interactions are negative. A surprising letter arrives from Washington, D.C. itself. President Grant and Congress have awarded you $5,000 as compensation for your losses to the Indians and your assistance in preventing the raid on the fort. $5,000, Josiah breathes, staring at the letter. That's That's a fortune. It is a substantial sum that could set you up comfortably, perhaps even fund a new start somewhere far from these territories and their painful memories. But money, you've discovered, can't buy peace of mind. It can't erase what you've seen and experienced. It can't bring Mary back. Still, it provides options you wouldn't otherwise have. And options, after months of having none, feel like their own kind of freedom. The compensation draws attention, not all of it welcome. One day, a familiar face appears at your door. Sarah Larimore, the woman who was captured alongside you, whose son was with her, who escaped early in your captivity with the help of an Indian while you remained tied down. Fanny Kelly, she says, standing on your doorstep with a brittle smile. I heard you'd made it back. You invite her in, curious about her experiences after your paths diverged. Over tea, she tells a harrowing tale of escape and survival, though something in her manner strikes you as performative, as though she's rehearsed this story many times. It's remarkable we both survived, you offer. Yes, remarkable, she agrees, stirring her tea. Then, after a pause, I'm writing about it. My experiences. A book. A book? The idea hadn't occurred to you, though perhaps it should have. Your story is certainly unusual enough to warrant documentation. People are fascinated by Indian captivity stories, Sarah continues. There's money in it. And I thought perhaps we could collaborate. Your story and mine together would make quite a compelling volume. The proposal is unexpected, but not unreasonable. You've shared a unique experience, you and this woman. Perhaps documenting it together makes sense. I'd need to think about it, you say cautiously. Reliving everything. Of course. Sarah rises to leave. But don't think too long. These stories are valuable when they're fresh. The public moves on quickly. After she's gone, Josiah voices the doubt you've been feeling. There was something off about her, like she wanted something she wasn't saying directly. She wants my story to make her book more valuable, you reply. I was captured longer, saw more, experienced more. Do you want to write about it? Really write about everything that happened? The question gives you pause. Do you? The idea of systematically revisiting every moment of your captivity is daunting, but there's also a pull toward documentation, a need to make meaning from suffering by preserving it, understanding it, sharing it with others who might learn from it. I think, you begin slowly, I think I need to tell it in my own words, not filtered through someone else's understanding. Josiah nods. Then that's what you should do. The decision to write your own account solidifies over the following weeks. You begin making notes, fragmentary at first, just images and impressions. The process is painful, but also unexpectedly cathartic. Putting experiences into words gives them shape, makes them something you possess, rather than something that possesses you. A letter arrives from Sarah Larimore, checking on your decision about collaboration. You reply that you've decided to write independently, wishing her well with her own project. Her response is cordial enough, but something in its tone suggests disappointment or perhaps calculation. You set aside your vague concerns, focusing instead on your own writing process. Life gradually establishes new rhythms. Josiah finds work locally, postponing your original plans for Idaho. You continue your writing, sometimes struggling to find the right words for experiences that seem to exist beyond language. The nightmares gradually become less frequent, though they never disappear entirely. You learn to predict their triggers, certain sounds, smells, anniversaries of particular events during your captivity. You called out in Lakota last night, Josiah tells you one morning, his expression concerned but not judgmental. What did I say? You ask. I don't know, but you sounded scared. You nod. I was back there, in the village, when they were debating whether to burn me alive. He takes your hand, knowing there's nothing he can say to erase such memories. His presence is enough. In the spring, you experience an unexpected joy. You're pregnant. After everything your body has endured, after months of starvation and abuse, it's still capable of creating new life. The discovery feels like a miracle, a counterbalance to all the death and loss. A baby, Josiah says in wonder, his hand gentle on your still flat stomach. Our baby. For the first time since your rescue, you allow yourself to think beyond survival, beyond recovery. You begin to imagine a future, raising a child, building a home, perhaps even finding happiness every aspect of life after trauma. Pregnancy brings its own complications. As your body changes, you're reminded of its vulnerability. Nightmares shift to include new fears, losing this child as you lost Mary, being unable to protect them from a world you now know to be unpredictably violent. What if I can't be a good mother? You ask Josiah one night, voicing your deepest fear. After everything, I'm not the same person. No, you're not, he agrees. You're stronger, more resilient, more aware of what really matters. Also more damaged, you add quietly. Shaped by experience, he counters, not damaged. You're not entirely convinced, but his faith in you provides comfort. As the baby grows, you find yourself talking to it, telling carefully edited stories about your travels, about the different people you've encountered, about the vast and beautiful and sometimes terrible country you've crossed. Your mother has seen things most people never will, you whisper to your rounded belly. She's survived things that should have killed her, and she's still here, still loving, still hoping. In saying it to your unborn child, you begin to believe it yourself. The pregnancy progresses without complications, a straightforward biological process that feels like a direct rebuke to the previous year's suffering. When labor begins, you face it with the same determination that got you through captivity, one moment at a time, enduring what must be endured. Josiah Jr. is born healthy and strong, his lusty cries filling the small cabin that has become your home. Holding him, you're overwhelmed by contradictory emotions, fierce love alongside paralyzing fear of loss, joy shadowed by the ghost of the child who didn't survive. He has your eyes, Josiah says, his voice thick with emotion as he sits beside you on the bed. And your chin, you reply, tracing the baby's tiny features with a gentle finger. He's perfect. In this moment of pure connection, the distance between your pre-captivity self and who you are now briefly collapses. You're simply a mother loving her child, a wife sharing joy with her husband. The past doesn't disappear, it never will, but it recedes, making space for this new life, this new beginning. As months pass, you continue working on your account of captivity between caring for Josiah Jr. and managing your household. The writing becomes both a record and a reckoning, a way to preserve what happened while also processing it. Then, a disturbing rumor reaches you. Sarah Larimore is about to publish a book about Indian captivity, a book that, according to those who've seen advance copies, contains detailed descriptions of experiences that weren't hers. They were yours. She's stolen your story, Josiah says, his voice tight with anger when you tell him what you've heard. After you declined to collaborate. We need to see a copy, you reply, stunned by the betrayal but needing confirmation before taking action, to know exactly what she's done. When you obtain a copy, your suspicions are confirmed. Sarah has incorporated detailed accounts of your experiences that she couldn't possibly have known firsthand. She's presented your months of captivity after her escape as though she'd witnessed them personally. She's appropriated your suffering, your resilience, your story. This is theft, Josiah declares, slamming the book shut. Plain and simple. You stare at the offending volume, emotions swirling, anger, certainly, betrayal, but also a strange sense of violation, as though Sarah has reached inside your memories and claimed them as her own. After everything the Lakota took from you, this woman has taken something else. Your narrative, your truth. What do we do? You ask quietly. Josiah's answer is immediate. We fight. And so begins another battle, this one in courtrooms rather than on the plains. You file a plagiarism lawsuit against Sarah Larimore, determined to reclaim ownership of your experiences. The legal process is exhausting, a different kind of ordeal than physical captivity, but taxing nonetheless. You're forced to publicly detail aspects of your captivity you'd hoped to present on your own terms. Sarah's lawyers question your credibility, your memory, even your character. Why would Mrs. Larimore need to steal your experiences when she had her own captivity story? One lawyer asks during a particularly grueling cross-examination. Because she was only captive for a matter of days, you reply steadily. I was there for nearly 7 months. Her brief experience, while certainly traumatic, doesn't compare to the depth and detail of what I endured. Throughout the trial, you maintain your composure. A skill honed during months when showing emotion to your captors could have meant punishment or death. Even when proceedings grow hostile, you remain calm, precise, truthful. Your testimony, combined with expert analysis, showing passages that could only have come from your personal experience, gradually builds a compelling case. When the verdict finally comes, it's in your favor. Sarah is found guilty of plagiarism and ordered to pay damages. The sum is small, barely covering your legal expenses, but the principle matters more than the money. Your story is yours again. Your experiences, however painful, belong to you alone. With the lawsuit behind you, you return to writing your own account with renewed determination. My captivity among the Sioux Indians takes shape as both historical record and personal testimony. You're meticulous with details, determined to create an accurate portrait of both the brutality and the humanity you witnessed. Some will call me sympathetic to the Indians, you tell Josiah as he reads portions of your manuscript. They'll say I should paint them as nothing but savages. You're telling the truth as you experienced it, he replies. That's all anyone can ask. The truth is complicated, you say softly. They did terrible things, but they're not monsters. They're people fighting for survival in the only ways they know. That complexity is what makes your account valuable. Anyone can write propaganda. You're writing reality. His understanding reinforces your resolve to present an unvarnished account, neither romanticizing nor demonizing the Lakota, but showing them as the complex human beings they are. As you complete your manuscript, news arrives that causes you to add an unexpected epilogue. Jumping Bear, the warrior who showed you kindness during your captivity and who delivered your warning letter to Fort Sully, has been spotted in Washington, D.C. as part of a delegation of tribal representatives meeting with government officials. I want to see him, you tell Josiah immediately, to thank him. The decision raises eyebrows among your friends and neighbours. Why would you want to meet with one of them? Haven't you suffered enough at Indian hands? But this feels important, a chance to acknowledge the one person who repeatedly protected you, who ultimately chose your safety over his people's plans. Without Jumping Bear, you might never have escaped. Without his decision to deliver your letter, you might have been killed in the aftermath of the failed ambush. Some debts transcend the boundaries between captive and captor. Washington, D.C. smells like money. That's your first thought as you step onto Pennsylvania Avenue, the distinctive scent of power, paper currency, and political ambition mingling with coal smoke and horse manure. It's 1872. And the nation's capital is a far cry from the Dakota Territory where your captivity unfolded, or the modest settlement where you've rebuilt your life with Josiah and young Josiah Jr. It's so much, you murmur to Josiah, taking in the imposing government buildings, the well-dressed crowds, the general air of self-importance that seems to hang over everything. Different world, Josiah agrees, adjusting his collar. Neither of you feels entirely comfortable here, frontier folk among the urban elite. You've come for two purposes: to finalize paperwork related to your compensation from Congress and, more personally, to find Jumping Bear. According to your sources, he's part of a delegation of tribal representatives meeting with government officials to negotiate yet another treaty, one of many that promise much and typically deliver little. Are you sure about this? Josiah asks, for perhaps the 10th time since you decided to make the journey. Seeing him again, it might bring everything back. You appreciate his concern, but he doesn't fully understand. It never left, Josiah. Not really. You adjust your bonnet, a small gesture of preparation. I need to do this, for me. Finding the delegation proves surprisingly simple. They're housed in a hotel specifically designated for visiting dignitaries, closely watched, of course. The government's hospitality comes with careful surveillance. You approach the hotel with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. What if Jumping Bear doesn't remember you? What if he resents your warning letter that thwarted the planned attack on Fort Sully? What if seeing him catapults you back into memories you fought so hard to manage? The lobby is cool and dim after the bright spring sunlight outside. A clerk eyes you suspiciously as you approach his desk. I'm here to see one of the Indian delegates, you explain. Jumping Bear of the Lakota. The Indians aren't receiving social calls, he replies dismissively. Government business only. You stand your ground. Please tell him Fanny Kelly is here. He'll want to see me. Something in your tone must convey your determination, because after a moment's hesitation, the clerk dispatches a boy to deliver your message. You and Josiah wait in uncomfortable chairs, ignoring the curious glances from other hotel guests. 20 minutes pass before a commotion at the far end of the lobby catches your attention. A group of men enter, several in suits and military uniforms, escorting 3 Lakota men dressed in an uncomfortable blend of traditional clothing and Western attire, as though caught between worlds. Your eyes find him immediately. Jumping Bear, older now, his face more lined, but unmistakably the same man who intervened when Ottawa's brother-in-law aimed an arrow at your heart, who rode beside you when others treated you as cargo, who ultimately delivered your letter to Fort Sully, despite knowing what it might contain. He sees you at the same moment. Recognition flashes across his face, followed by what appears to be genuine pleasure. He says something to one of the officials, who frowns but nods reluctantly. Jumping Bear approaches, his walk the same confident stride you remember, though somewhat constrained by the unfamiliar surroundings. He stops a respectful distance away. Fanny Kelly, he says, your name carrying the slight accent you remember. You live well? Such a simple question for such a complex answer. Do you live well? You've survived, you've healed, at least physically. You have Josiah and your son, but well seems too simple a word for your existence after captivity. I do, you say anyway, because detailed truth would take too long. Thanks to you, he shakes his head slightly. I did small thing. You saved my life, you counter. Twice, when Ottawa's brother-in-law would have killed me, and when you delivered my letter to Fort Sully. A ghost of a smile crosses his face. Letter not say what you promised. No, you admit. It didn't. Good lie, he says, surprising you. Smart. Like Lakota. The compliment touches you unexpectedly. Coming from him, it feels genuine. Recognition of the survival skills you developed during your captivity. You introduce Josiah, who shakes Jumping Bear's hand with more grace than many white men would show. Thank you for protecting my wife when I couldn't, he says simply. Jumping Bear nods acknowledgement, then glances at the officials, watching your interaction with poorly disguised suspicion. Not much time. They watch always. I understand. I needed to thank you, to see you. He seems to consider something, then speaks in Lakota, words flowing too quickly for your rusty comprehension. I'm sorry, I don't understand anymore, you admit. It's been too long, he switches back to English. I say, you strong woman, survive when many would die, like Lakota woman. Again, his comparison of you to his people feels like high praise rather than an insult. You're surprised by the warmth that spreads through you at his words. I have wife now, he adds, gesturing to a woman standing with the other delegates. Kolamawa, my friend. I tell her about you. The woman meets your gaze across the lobby, her expression curious but not hostile. You nod respectfully to her. Are you well? You ask him. Your people? His face clouds. Hard times. Government make promises, break promises, want us on reservation. He makes a small gesture encompassing his Western clothing, the hotel, everything. Want us become white, not Lakota. The pain and pride in his voice are unmistakable. You think of Ottawa, of the village women who taught you their skills, of little Yellowbird. Where are they now? Have they surrendered to reservation life? Are they still fighting? Have they survived at all? I'm sorry, you say, knowing the words are wholly inadequate. Jumping Bear straightens his shoulders. We survive. Always survive. One of the officials calls to him, indicating their time is up. Jumping Bear turns back to you with a look of resignation. I must go. More talking. Always talking. No listening. I understand. You hesitate. Then add, I wrote about you. In my book. I told people you helped me. He tilts his head. Book. My story. What happened during my captivity. Ah, he nods. Good to tell truth. Many lies about Lakota. He glances again at the impatient officials. Maybe someday, peace between your people and mine. I hope so, you reply, though you both know how unlikely it is. The government's trajectory is clear. Expansion at any cost, even if that cost is measured in Lakota lives and land. With a final nod to both you and Josiah, Jumping Bear returns to his group. You watch him go, this man who exists in your memory as both captor and savior, enemy and ally. The complexity of your feelings toward him mirrors the complexity of relations between your peoples. Tangled, contradictory, impossible to reduce to simple narratives of heroes and villains. Outside the hotel, Josiah takes your arm. You all right? Yes, you say, surprised to find it's true. Better than I expected. He seemed decent. He is. That's what I've tried to explain in the book. They're people, Josiah. Not symbols, not savages, not noble warriors, just people, capable of cruelty and kindness like anyone else. Most folks prefer simpler stories, he observes as you walk back toward your lodgings. I know. It's easier to believe all Indians are bloodthirsty monsters or that all whites are innocent victims. You pause, watching a carriage rattle past. But that's not what I experienced, and it's not what I wrote. Your book, My Captivity Among the Sioux Indians, has been published for a few months now. The public reception has been mixed, fascination with your harrowing tale coupled with discomfort at your refusal to paint the Lakota as one-dimensional villains. Some reviewers have questioned your loyalty to your race, your country. Others have praised your nuanced portrayal and unflinching honesty. You've started conversations, at least, Josiah says, squeezing your hand. Made people think. Some people, you correct, those willing to consider perspectives beyond their own. You've learned that such people are rarer than you once believed. Most prefer the comfort of certainty, clear divisions between right and wrong, civilized and savage, us and them. Your experience has left you permanently uncomfortable with such simplicity. The next day brings meetings with government officials, routine paperwork regarding your compensation, but also questions about your book and your unique insights into Lakota culture and tactics. You answer carefully, aware that any information you provide might be used against people like Jumping Bear. Mrs. Kelly, one officer begins with practiced cordiality. Your account suggests the Lakota treated you with a certain restraint. Would you say that's typical of how they treat female captives? The question's implication is clear. You've been asked versions of it countless times since your rescue, prurient curiosity disguised as official inquiry. I would say, Colonel, that my experience was my own. I can't speak for others. You meet his gaze steadily. What I can tell you is that the greatest threat to my life came when I dropped a ceremonial pipe, not when I was first captured. Their values and priorities are different from ours, but no less structured. He seems disappointed by your neutral response. And what of their military capabilities? You observed their tactics firsthand. I observed desperate people defending their way of life, you reply carefully. People who understood the terrain better than any military strategist ever could. Mrs. Kelly, he says, leaning forward, I understand your ordeal may have created certain sympathies. But these savages killed your adopted daughter. Surely you recognize they must be contained, eliminated, civilized. You finish for him, your voice sharper than intended. Yes, a Lakota warrior killed Mary. The same people also gave me Yellowbird to raise as my own. They beat me when I tried to escape and treated my wounds when I fell ill. They debated burning me alive and then spared me because of my kindness to their children. You take a breath, collecting yourself. Forgive me, Colonel. What I mean to say is that my experience taught me to be wary of simplistic solutions to complex problems. The Colonel's expression suggests he finds you difficult and possibly subversive. The meeting concludes shortly after with platitudes about your service to the country and the value of your insights. As you and Josiah leave the government building, you feel drained but also lighter somehow, as though speaking your truth to power, however futile, has released something within you. You certainly didn't tell him what he wanted to hear, Josiah observes, not without admiration. No, you agree, but I told him what he needed to hear, whether he recognizes it or not. The Washington trip concludes without further encounters with Jumping Bear or substantive conversations with officials. You return home to Josiah Jr., who at 2 years old has no concept of your history, no understanding of why his mother sometimes wakes screaming in the night, or why certain sounds make her freeze in momentary terror. You hope to keep it that way as long as possible. Months pass. Your book continues to sell modestly. Not enough to make you wealthy, but sufficient to supplement Josiah's income and provide security for your family. You receive letters from readers, some appreciative of your honesty, others critical of your sympathetic portrayal of your captors. One letter stands out, from a woman named Sarah Oakley, herself a former captive among a different tribe. "I never had words for my experience until I read yours," she writes. "The way you described the confusion of hating your captivity while recognizing the humanity of your captors, I thought I was alone in feeling this way." You write back, beginning a correspondence that eventually leads to meeting other former captives, women whose experiences echo your own in some ways while differing dramatically in others. Together, you form an informal network, sharing stories and support that those who haven't lived through captivity simply cannot provide. Through these connections, you hear troubling accounts of government dealings with various tribes, promises broken, resources stolen, attempts to eradicate cultural practices and beliefs. The pattern matches what Jumping Bear described, a systematic effort to destroy indigenous ways of life. "It makes me sick," you tell Josiah one evening, after receiving particularly disturbing news about conditions on a nearby reservation. "They're starving people into submission and calling it civilization. What can we do?" he asks, practical as always. "I don't know." You look down at the letter in your hands. "Write? Speak? Bear witness?" It seems inadequate against the machinery of government policy and public indifference, yet doing nothing feels like betrayal, not just of Jumping Bear, who saved your life, but of the complexity of truth you fought to preserve in your account of captivity. You begin writing articles for newspapers, carefully crafted pieces that humanize without romanticizing, that acknowledge violence while contextualizing its causes. Some publications reject your work outright, calling it Indian sympathizing. Others publish but attach editorial notes distancing themselves from your views. A few, typically smaller, more progressive papers, print your words as written, bringing you a modest reputation as an unusual voice in the national conversation about the Indian problem. "The problem," you write in one particularly pointed essay, "is not the Indians' resistance to civilization, but our civilization's resistance to acknowledging the Indians' humanity. We demand they abandon customs, languages, and spiritual practices developed over thousands of years, then label them savage when they resist this cultural annihilation." The article prompts a flurry of angry letters, a few threats, and, most surprisingly, an invitation to speak at a women's suffrage gathering in Philadelphia. The organizers believe your perspective on captivity and survival might resonate with their movement's concerns about women's autonomy and voice. "They want me to talk about being silenced," you tell Josiah, bemused. "Me, who can't seem to stop talking about uncomfortable truths. Will you go?" You consider the prospect, standing before an audience, sharing not just your captivity story, which you've discussed countless times, but your evolving understanding of power, voice, and belonging in American society. "I think I will," you decide. It's a different audience, a chance to reach people who might actually listen. The speech in Philadelphia marks a turning point. Speaking to a room full of women fighting for basic rights, you find connections between your experience as a captive and their experience as second-class citizens in their own country. Your words about survival and maintaining dignity under oppression resonate deeply. To be captive is to have your voice taken, you tell them, to be told your experiences matter only as they serve others' narratives, to be seen not as fully human, but as an object to be controlled. The women in the audience nod in recognition. This language speaks to their condition in ways you hadn't anticipated. After the speech, a reporter asks whether you're now adding women's rights advocate to your resume as Indian captivity survivor and author. I'm simply connecting experiences, you reply. The desire for self-determination isn't unique to any group. It's fundamentally human. Your name begins appearing in suffragist publications alongside your articles about Indian affairs. Some criticize you for diluting either cause by connecting them. Others praise your ability to find common ground across seemingly separate struggles. You continue writing and occasionally speaking, though you turn down more invitations than you accept. Your priority remains your family. Josiah, whose health has begun to deteriorate again, and Josiah Jr., now attending school and asking increasingly complex questions about the world. "Mama, why do you write so much about Indians?" he asks one afternoon, homework temporarily abandoned. "Tommy Miller says they're dangerous and bad." You set aside your correspondence and consider how to answer. Your son deserves truth, but truth calibrated to his age and understanding. Some can be dangerous, you acknowledge. Some settlers can be dangerous too, but most people, whether Indian or white, are just trying to live their lives the best they can. He frowns, processing this nuance. "But they killed people. They took you away." "Yes, they did," you agree, "and that was wrong. But I also met Indians who were kind to me, who protected me when others wanted to hurt me. People are complicated, Josiah. They can do terrible things and good things." "Like Jumping Bear?" he asks, surprising you. You've mentioned the name in his presence, but didn't realize he was old enough to absorb such details. "Yes, exactly like Jumping Bear. He was part of the group that attacked our wagon train, but he also saved my life. Both things are true." Your son considers this, his expression serious beyond his years. "That's confusing." You laugh softly. "Yes, it is. Much more confusing than the stories in your school books, I imagine. Teacher says Indians need to become civilized or disappear. Something cold settles in your stomach. And what do you think?" He shrugs. "I think they should get to decide for themselves, like you always say we should." Pride warms you. Despite the simplicity of his understanding, he's grasped something essential, something many adults never manage to comprehend. "That's very wise," you tell him, smoothing his hair. "Very wise indeed." That night, as you record the conversation in your journal, you reflect on the strange journey your life has taken, from young bride to captive to survivor to reluctant public voice. None of it follows the path you imagined when you set out for Idaho on the Oregon Trail. None of it erases the trauma or brings Mary back. None of it resolves the continuing conflicts between settlers and indigenous peoples. But perhaps in small ways your words matter. Perhaps through your son and others like him, perspectives can shift. Perhaps the complexity of truth can gradually replace the comfort of simplistic narratives. It's not the happy ending of childhood stories. It's messy and incomplete and full of contradictions. But it's real as the scars on your body, the memories that still wake you at night, and the hard-won wisdom that helps you face each new day. In a world determined to sort everything into neat categories of good and evil, your lived experience remains stubbornly, defiantly complex, and that, you've come to believe, is its greatest value. Time moves differently as you age. The years that once crawled by during captivity now slip through your fingers like water, impossible to hold. It's 1890. 26 years have passed since your rescue from the Lakota. The fresh-faced 19-year-old bride who set out on the Oregon Trail is long gone, replaced by a middle-aged woman with silver threading through her dark hair and quiet wisdom in her eyes. You're 45 now, with the kind of weathered strength that comes only through survival. You sit on the porch of your modest home, watching the sunset paint the sky in colours that still remind you of those Dakota Territory evenings. Josiah Jr. is grown, 20 years old, and preparing to marry a local girl with bright eyes and quick laughter. Your husband moves more slowly these days, the toll of searching for you across hostile territory all those years ago permanently etched in his joints and lungs. The newspaper on your lap carries news that sends a chill through you despite the warm evening. Sitting Bull shot dead during arrest. Bad business, Josiah says, easing himself into the chair beside yours. Ghost dance has them spooked. The ghost dance, a spiritual movement sweeping through indigenous communities, promising the return of traditional ways, the restoration of the buffalo, the disappearance of white settlers, a desperate hope for people whose world has been systematically dismantled. They're afraid, you say, quietly. The government, the settlers. They don't understand it's just prayer, just dancing, just people trying to hold on to something that's being taken away. Josiah reaches for your hand, his touch familiar after decades of marriage. You still feel it, the connection. It's not a question. After all this time, he knows how deeply your captivity shaped you, how impossible it's been to simply file away those 6 months as an unfortunate incident. The Lakota, their language, their customs, their struggles, remain part of you, woven into your understanding of the world. I keep thinking about what Jumping Bear said in Washington, you admit. We survive, always survive. I wonder if he still believes that. Jumping Bear, you've had no contact since that brief meeting in Washington, though you've thought of him often. Is he on a reservation now? Did he join the ghost dance movement? Is he even alive? 2 weeks after Sitting Bull's death, more news arrives. Worse news. A massacre at Wounded Knee Creek. Hundreds of Lakota men, women and children killed by the 7th Cavalry. Bodies frozen in the snow. A people's final resistance crushed with brutal efficiency. You read the accounts with a growing sense of horror and grief. These could be the people you lived among, Ottawa's wives, the women who taught you to tan hides, the children who stared at you with curiosity, Yellowbird who slept curled against you through cold nights. They're calling it a battle, Josiah says, disgust evident in his voice as he reads the newspaper over your shoulder. A battle implies 2 sides fighting. This was slaughter. You can't speak. The words stick in your throat, tangled with memories, both terrible and tender, of your time among the Lakota. For days you move through your routines mechanically, haunted by images of snow-stained red, of bodies piled like discarded dolls. Finally, you do what you've always done with overwhelming emotion. You write, not an article this time, but letters, to newspaper editors, to politicians, to anyone who might listen. You speak not as an expert or an advocate, but as someone who has witnessed firsthand the humanity behind the headlines. I was held captive by the Lakota for 6 months, you write. I experienced their cruelty and their kindness. I lost my adopted daughter to their violence. But what happened at Wounded Knee was not justice or military necessity. It was vengeance and fear given license to destroy. We cannot build a nation on such foundations. Most of your letters go unanswered or receive polite, dismissive responses. A few generate hostile reactions, questioning your loyalty or suggesting your captivity left you with unnatural sympathies. But occasionally you receive notes of appreciation from others who've lived between worlds, from those who recognize the dangerous simplicity of seeing any group of people as entirely good or entirely evil. "You gave words to what I've felt but couldn't express," writes a former soldier who served at a reservation. "Thank you for your courage." Courage. The word makes you smile sadly. Is it courage to simply speak truth, or is it just stubborn unwillingness to accept comfortable lies? The years continue their relentless forward motion. In 1895, Josiah's health takes a sudden turn for the worse. Pneumonia settles in his lungs already damaged by his military service, and the months spent searching for you across harsh territory. "Don't look so worried," he tells you from his sickbed, his attempt at a reassuring smile undermined by the rattle in his chest. "I've survived worse." But he hasn't. Within a week, he's gone. The man who refused to believe you were dead, who searched when others abandoned hope, who welcomed you back without question or judgment, who stood beside you through nightmares and public criticism and everything in between. You're a widow at 50, alone in ways that echo your captivity while being entirely different. Then you were surrounded by people but isolated by language and culture. Now you understand the language and customs perfectly, but the person who most deeply understood you is gone. Josiah Jr. and his wife insist you move in with them. "We have plenty of room," your daughter-in-law says, her kindness genuine, "and the children would love having their grandmother close." The invitation is tempting. Your grandchildren, 2 girls and a boy, bring joy unlike anything you've experienced since before your captivity. Their innocence, their unquestioning love, their simple delight in small wonders, all of it heals something deep within you that you hadn't realized was still broken. But you decline. "I need my own space," you explain, "my own routines." What you don't say is that you still have nights when you wake screaming in Lakota, that sometimes, when startled, your first instinct is to drop to the ground and make yourself invisible, as you did among the warriors. That occasionally, when alone, you find yourself humming in the songs the women sang while working, your hands automatically mimicking the motions of tanning hides or preparing pemmican. These are private moments, remnants of your other life. Your grandchildren don't need to witness them. Instead, you visit often, bringing small gifts and stories, carefully edited versions of your experiences that emphasize resilience and understanding rather than violence and trauma. You want them to grow up without the fear and hatred that defined relations between settlers and indigenous peoples for so long. "Grandmother, tell us about the Indians again," your eldest granddaughter requests during one visit, her eyes bright with interest. "Which part?" you ask, settling into the comfortable chair reserved for your visits, the part where you learned their language. "How did you do that? With no books or teachers?" You smile, pleased by her curiosity about communication rather than conflict. "Necessity. Mostly. When you need to understand to survive, you learn quickly." "Or say something in Indian," her younger brother demands, bouncing with excitement. "Lakota," you correct gently. The language is called Lakota. You think for a moment, then speak a simple phrase, "Mitakuye o yasing." "What's that mean?" he asks, trying to repeat the unfamiliar sounds. "We are all related," you translate. It's an important concept in Lakota spirituality that all living things are connected. Your daughter-in-law looks up from her sewing. "That sounds almost Christian." "Many beliefs overlap when you look closely enough," you reply. "People everywhere ask the same basic questions about life and death, about right and wrong. The answers just wear different clothing." These are the kinds of conversations you value most in your later years, opportunities to complicate simplistic narratives, to plant seeds of nuanced understanding in younger generations. It's not the dramatic public platform some might have wanted for you, but it feels right. This quiet influence radiating outward from personal connections. In 1898, your book is reprinted, a revised and updated edition that includes reflections on how Native American lives have changed in the decades since your captivity. The publisher, sensing renewed interest in frontier narratives as the century draws to a close, approaches you about a promotional tour. People are feeling nostalgic about the Old West, he explains when you meet in his Chicago office. Your story represents an era that's rapidly disappearing. We could arrange lectures in major cities, New York, Boston, Philadelphia. You consider the proposal. At 53, you're still healthy and sharp-minded. The money would provide security for your later years, and perhaps there's value in speaking directly to audiences, in being a living counterpoint to the increasingly romanticized versions of frontier history appearing in popular dime novels and Wild West shows. What exactly would these lectures cover, you ask cautiously? Your captivity, of course, the danger, the drama, your daring escape. His enthusiasm is palpable. Audiences can't get enough of Indian stories these days, especially with the wars effectively over. The wars, as though systematic displacement and cultural destruction could be so neatly categorized, as though the suffering ended with military campaigns. My story includes my captivity, you say slowly, but also what I learned from it, the complexity of the Lakota people, the failures of government policy, the humanity on all sides. The publisher's smile tightens. Of course, though we'd want to emphasize the adventure aspects. The public prefers simpler narratives. You decline the tour. Your story won't be reduced to entertainment, to titillation dressed up as historical interest. If fewer people hear your account as a result, so be it. Those who truly want to understand will find their way to your written words. Instead of public lectures, you focus on correspondence, maintaining connections with other former captives, responding to readers of your book, occasionally writing for smaller publications that welcome your nuanced perspective. This quieter influence suits you, allowing for depth rather than breadth of impact. You also begin collecting materials for a potential new book, not about your captivity this time, but about what happened after, about the challenges of returning to civilization after experiencing its opposite, about carrying multiple worldviews within one mind, about the strange position of being both insider and outsider in your own culture. It's about belonging. You explain to Josiah Jr. when he asks about the project, about what happens when you've seen behind the curtain and can't unsee it, even when everyone around you pretends the curtain is solid. He considers this, then asks, "Do you ever regret it? Not the captivity itself. I know you didn't choose that. But what came after? The writing, the speaking out. Might have been easier to just let it go." The question deserves careful consideration. You think about the hostility you faced, the friendships lost over your refusal to simplify, the nights spent wrestling with memories when others slept peacefully in their certainties. Easier? Yes, you finally answer. But not possible, not for me. Your work on the new book progresses slowly, interrupted by life's demands and the increasing physical limitations of aging. By 1904, at age 59, your health begins to falter. Nothing dramatic, just the accumulation of hardships your body has endured, from the near starvation of captivity to the harsh winters of frontier life. You set aside the manuscript, recognizing you may not complete it. This brings not despair, but a quiet acceptance. You've already told the story that needed telling. Everything else is elaboration. On a cool autumn evening, you sit wrapped in a shawl on your porch, watching the sunset, as you've done thousands of times before. The sky burns orange and purple, then fades to deep blue. Stars appear one by one, the same stars that watched over you during those long-ago nights of captivity. You think about Mary, forever 5 years old in your memory, about Yellowbird, who briefly filled the child-shaped hole in your heart, about Ottawa with his fierce pride and casual cruelty, about the unnamed women who taught you their skills and their endurance, about Jumping Bear and his unexpected kindness. You think about Josiah, who never stopped searching, about your son, who grew up in the shadow of your experience but found his own way to understanding, about your grandchildren, who will inherit a world still wrestling with the same fundamental questions of belonging and identity that defined your life. You think about the girl you were, stepping into a covered wagon with dreams of Idaho, and the woman you became, shaped by loss and survival, by violence and compassion, by two cultures that both claimed and rejected you in different ways. The narrative of your life isn't neat or simple. It doesn't fit the preferred stories of heroes and villains, of civilization triumphing over savagery. It's messy and contradictory and painfully real. Perhaps that's why it matters, why you fought so hard to preserve its complexity against the constant pressure to simplify. As twilight deepens into night, a profound peace settles over you, not because the questions are answered or the wounds fully healed, but because you've done what you could with what you were given. You've transformed trauma into testimony. You've insisted on humanity in all its complicated glory. That night, as you drift towards sleep, your mind returns to those Dakota plains, not the violence or terror, but the vast sky, the wind moving through tall grass, the rhythm of women working together, the children's laughter. For once, these memories bring not nightmares, but something like reconciliation. Fanny Kelly died in 1904, never forgetting the sacrifice of her young adopted daughter. Her book, My Captivity Among the Sioux Indians, remains one of the most nuanced first-person accounts of Native American captivity from that era. While many similar narratives served primarily to reinforce negative stereotypes, Kelly's work acknowledged both the brutality and humanity she witnessed. Her experience bridges two worlds that often seemed irreconcilably opposed, offering perspectives that complicated the simplistic narratives of her time. She lived through a pivotal period in American history when the frontier was closing, indigenous cultures were being systematically dismantled, and the nation was constructing its self-mythology about westward expansion. Today, historians value Kelly's account for its relative lack of sensationalism and its willingness to portray Lakota culture with complexity rather than caricature. Her story reminds us that history happens to real people, messy, contradictory people who don't fit neatly into categories of hero or villain, savage or civilized. In her own words, I have endeavoured to relate the incidents of my captivity with perfect truthfulness. The experience of such a life as I was compelled to lead among the Indians can never be told. Its change from civilization to barbarism, from security to fear, from plenty to famine, from the peaceful fireside to the wild campfire are contrasts too deep for analysis. Yet, in attempting that impossible analysis, in refusing the comfort of simplistic narratives, Fanny Kelly left behind something rare and valuable, a testament to human complexity that transcends the boundaries of time, culture, and conflict. As you lie in your comfortable bed, safe in the knowledge that such experiences remain firmly in the past, perhaps her story offers a gentle reminder of our shared humanity, the terrible and beautiful capacity we all carry to harm and to heal, to destroy and to nurture, to misunderstand, and occasionally to truly see one another across the chasms that would divide us. Let that thought carry you towards sleep, toward dreams untroubled by the hardships of frontier life or the clash of cultures that defined Fanny Kelly's remarkable journey. Rest easy, knowing that even in the darkest moments of history, resilience and understanding found ways to survive. Like the endless Dakota prairie, let your mind grow quiet now. Like the stars over a Lakota camp, let your thoughts twinkle gently before fading into the peaceful darkness of deep, restful sleep.